5:30 p.m. in the Central Admin offices. Our district mission statement is that all students will learn well, become lifelong learners, and contribute positively to society. I'd like to call the meeting to order with a roll call, please.
Berger.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
Catherine. Absent. Johnson.
Here.
Moore. Absent. Thomas.
Here.
Wiskes.
Here. Thank you, everybody. I think both those Mike's got work and they had to kind of go to town for family business, so appreciate everybody else being here tonight. So we have a quorum. I'd like to welcome all of our visitors, and it's good over the summer. We don't have a lot of people in here usually, so it's good to have a lot of people in the room. It helps us as a board to focus that this is, we're going to get to a student here in a little bit about we're doing things that affect a lot of people outside the building, so thank you everybody for coming. As per tradition for our public forum, I will read the following statement. We would like to remind all speakers that while this is an open forum for any issues, praise, or concerns, the board does expect all speakers to maintain a civil tone and refrain from using profanity, raising their voices, making statements that are threatening or harassing towards others. We also want to remind speakers that any comments made during the public meeting are done at the risk of making the comment, and the district will not be responsible for the defamatory, potential defamatory statements. It is the board's practice not to engage or respond to speakers during the public comment section, regardless of the topic or concern. The board wishes to further discuss or address an item or concern raised in a public comment. It will do so by establishing an agenda item at future board meetings or delegate responsibility to the administrator to address the issue. Having said that, is there anybody that would like to speak in the public forum? Okay. Seeing none, then we'll move on to approving the agenda. One thing that I would like to ask the board to consider that under new business, item M, approve the high school addition change orders. If we could move those up with the old business under 5A, as Rochelle Hines will be on with us, that way she doesn't have to stay through the entire meeting. So if that is okay with the board, I'd appreciate a motion to approve the agenda with moving item A up, or M up to.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second to approve the agenda with one modification. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We need to approve the meeting minutes from the previous meetings, and if you read in there, there was one little minor change from the previous meeting, but it's just to add some depth in there. So there is approval of the meeting minutes and adjusting what's in minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the minutes of the previous meetings. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Old business. Let's go on to approve the FRK contract, architect contract for athletic field design. Rochelle, are you there? I don't know. Do we need Rochelle for this part?
We don't really for this one.
Okay,
This is
why
just.
I am here.
Okay. So,
Yep.
Yeah,
So
anything you
this
want
is
to say about the contract for athletic field designing? I think we talked briefly at the last meeting about doing pay-as-you-go for this one that would fall back under, should we end up building a field, it'll fall back under the cost to do the planning for that. But this is just actually the actual contract. Anything to add to that, you think, Rochelle?
Yeah, we do give a maximum on there, and that's really just a we're going to do it hourly, not to exceed that, but we're really not going to hopefully get to that point either if we get things resolved. We are also going to credit back to the contract as well. When we go move forward with a project, that amount we spent on master planning.
so does everybody more know this is $6,000 maximum for master plan? This is not the actual design work. We wish it was for $6,000, but it doesn't seem fair. So doesn't seem fair to Rochelle.
Yeah, no, that probably wouldn't be very fair.
Any questions on that? Otherwise, a second on the motion or any discussion?
Motion to approve contract for athletic field design.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the FRK contract for athletic field design. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. So now let's go ahead and, Rochelle's, you maybe heard, we had the high school change order way down later, but we'll let you go ahead and we're going to wade through these now. So Mark, you want to kind of,
Yeah, so this change order is actually based on getting proper filter. And Rochelle, if I say it the wrong way, please feel free to interrupt me, but the dirt that we had taken from the upper parking lot at the high school was some of the dirt we were gonna use to fill in for the new parking lot. Turns out that the soil quality there isn't up to par to truly hold a parking lot right, which makes me a little nervous that it was holding a parking lot before. So it won't compact properly for the new parking lot. So we need to bring in additional, would good fill dirt be the thing to call it, Rochelle?
Yeah, it's new dirt. So you guys obviously remember we found obviously quite a bit of that rubble that was underneath that upper parking lot. That is what was removed and obviously not a suitable fill material to use even under a parking lot. So they actually just got rid of that off-site and then they have to bring in additional soil to make up for that soil that they removed because they were going to relocate it into the north, where the new north parking lot is going to be. But that obviously didn't work because it was not suitable fill.
so it's like 19,500 for fill, is what it is.
Correct. And just to speak on that, we did go back and forth with the contractor to get that lowered. And with Hall Engineering, we were able to get that down a couple $1,000s for that fill.
They're expensive apparently.
And it's new dirt. So, any discussion on it, any questions from the board?
Motion to approve high school addition change order.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the change order for 19,500 for dirt. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Change order is approved. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you very much. Anything else for me tonight?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good night. Appreciate it.
Okay. I thought it was funny to hear dirt, so.
New dirt.
All right, so moving on to our new business, we have student representative, and this is awesome. Kinley Harvey, do you feel comfortable there, or do you want to sit up here? Do you want to come up there? That'd be great. Kinley, this is like our third year of doing this. We've had student reps in here before, and I will tell you, on behalf of the rest of the board, we really appreciate hearing from our students, because otherwise we make decisions that are just in these walls, and you're a representative reminder of who we're really serving, so. Thank you for coming up here. If you're nervous, that's okay.
So am I, so you're good. Yeah. Hey, would you tell us real quick, like your grade?
I'm a sophomore.
Okay.
So she could do this for 3 years. She'd be real pro at this. But
Yeah.
she's done.
Okay, so they wanted me to talk about like the new building and how it's done. And a lot of students like it, but they wish there was like a restroom where the new hallway is because it's like a long walk. And I like the carpet, that was too nice.
Well, the lady that picked it was just on the phone, so.
She did a good job with that, yeah.
Many students like complain about the lunchtime though. They think it's like too short even with cold lunch. It's just a little crowded, but I think I like it more than the old building so far.
So what's crowded?
Like, so, you know where the ag room is, you know that little hallway thing? Everyone's in there all the time, and it's such a crowded space when it's time to go to the class.
That's a big crossway now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. By the Purdy bench, Purdy base bench.
Freshman first day went well this year. Student council showed the freshmen around and helped teachers when needed. And the freshmen were really nice.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, Sandy. Take your time. Hey?
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
And lunch on the lawn went well this year. The students loved it. When we played some next door, Campbell, most of of them went inside because of the heat this year, but. I
And it was a
think
little
went-
different than on the lawn, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you wanna tell them about that?
Most students are saying lunch on the parking lot, so
Yeah.
that was funny.
We're waiting for some grass to be able to grow in some places around there, so yeah.
And then for musicals, they're thinking of doing like a trick or treat thing since the first like show night is on Halloween. So like in the lobby, I think they're having like the cast like hand out candy to little kids before the show. And the show is like October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd. I don't know the times yet, but. And then marching band, we had a parade in Moulton this last weekend, and then we have a parade in Marietta this weekend. And we're working on the second song right now, and making some progress.
What's the show? What's the songs? Do you remember the theme?
We're trying to do like the Beatles.
The Beatles. So you gotta come out to a football game and watch the marching band to hear some Beatles songs.
And the pep assembly, most of the students were like real excited and into school spirit. I think they like it, but that's all I have.
Good job.
Board got some questions? I would tell you on your comment on the bathroom in that hallway, that has been noted more than once. So I think that's a good observations of the students. And, yeah, I guess,
Yeah, I've heard it from my daughter probably 100 times already too, so I think she's
I hear
right
it
with
all
me.
the time.
Yeah.
I would say the next school we build, but it's
Oh.
probably not.
The next, oh.
So, but it's probably not going to be one of those, so, you know,
I don't think
hopefully we
there's a
can,
better space for a back.
everybody just kind of get used to the distance.
It's okay, I've even heard things from my son, who's a freshman, about things, Mr. Keeler would probably appreciate that the first thought was, he's made the weight room too small. Like, don't tell me that, kid. So,
But you feel a lot bigger in a
Exactly,
smaller
that's
room.
what- that's
It's like,
exactly.
I go in there and then I feel like I've lifted.
Right.
So,
So just a question, so how is the lunchroom atmosphere? I know it's too long, but how's the atmosphere in that room versus what you had last year?
It's pretty better since it's closed lunch.
Okay,
And like, I don't think there's any students like sitting alone. I think everyone has a friend. and
okay,
That's good.
so that's good, okay. So how too short is it? Like 2 minutes, 5 minutes? You can't do a half hour, so
Well, like, I think 4 more minutes would be
4
good.
more minutes? Okay.
Yeah, because last year was like 30 minutes, wasn't it? Or-
I don't know, that's a good question.
I'm 41 and have a very bad memory, I'm gonna be honest.
Someone said it was 30 minutes, and I'm like, I didn't really know the difference, but a
Okay.
lot of students are pretty good.
So is it having enough time to eat, or is it enough time like to socialize after you eat?
I'm not sure about that, but
Okay, all right.
Part of that too could be that they're all there now, so there may be something really worth looking at to adjust them.
I know OPA really worked on getting 2 lines up, or I think, have they been successful in getting 2 lines up?
We just have one right now because of staffing, but
Okay,
Okay,
so that's probably something.
so that would help
on
you
our
too,
people
I
to help.
think. Okay. Okay, all right. Kinley, you did awesome.
Good work.
Thank you very much, so, appreciate your time, and you're welcome to stay as long as you want, or if you're like, I'm out of here, that's okay. Thank you for coming.
All right.
Next item is consideration action on late open enrollment applications. There's 5. Mr. Taylor, please.
So the good news is that all 5 of these fall under one of 2 categories that are pretty easy to work with. Each of these are things that we're doing to clean up some paperwork that hasn't been filed already to get ready for a very big, exciting, important day, Count Day. So these are kids who moved in the middle of the last year or this summer, either changed parent households or moved from one district to the other, and they're wanting to remain in the district that they've been in. So this is just making sure that paperwork's cleaned up before Count Day gets here. All kids that hadn't already been with us last year, so just getting their paperwork done. And there's still not yet a mechanism that the state has given for superintendents to just deal with that, so you guys don't have to. So asking for your consideration to approve those.
So are these in or out?
These ones are out. We had some ins approved at other districts, and I don't know the procedure that they're following, but we had some ins come to us that we had to clean up the same as this. So just trying to be a good neighbor, and, you know, if a kid's already been there, I think one of these, if I remember right, is either a junior or a senior, and it's trying to make sure they can remain where they've been since kindergarten.
Motion to approve late open enrollment applications.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve late open roll applications. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, C, approve the Howard Middle School Drama Club Sunday performance. This is a little bit of an exception to policy.
Yeah, well, at least the way that I interpret it, it's at least close enough to an exception that I wanted to come to you. So typically, the Howard Middle School play has happened on the weekend, where there's, I think it's Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday. It's a matinee, I think, right, Jared?
Yeah.
Yeah. So technically, our board policy says on Sundays you can't have a morning activity or an evening activity. It's earlier in the day. I just figured I'd bring it and make sure that we're all okay with that. That's not just a hole in our policy. I think it's probably wise. The matinees for the shows typically do pretty well. A lot of people, you know, like to go to those right after church while they're out and about already. Really, they do a nice job. The gals that run the drama at Howard and they run a pretty tight ship and put together a pretty good performance there. So I would highly recommend allowing for this one slight tweak or slight exception maybe. And again, it may not actually be an exception. I just want to make sure that we give them the blessing if we can.
I move that we grant them Sunday afternoon performance.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the Howard Middle School Sunday afternoon matinee performance. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, appoint board member delegate for delegate assembly. So IASB is the 20th through the, what's that?
It's conference time.
20th through the 22nd of November, so it's coming up in a couple of months. I went to the delegate assembly last year, and I would allow somebody else to have that joyous opportunity, so want to this year. Otherwise, I will pass this year.
That's on the first day, isn't it?
It's on the first day.
And the one thing about it is it actually counts for less points.
No,
So
I don't,
I thought it did last year. Did it not?
it kind
Did
of.
they give you the full points?
They give you the
Okay.
full points. Yeah.
Good.
What you do is you get the points for the board work, but the issue is, what do you get more out of?
Mhm.
The delegate assembly or the classes? I'll tell you, you get more in the classes. You just have to really like parliamentary procedures to go to that thing. It's pretty scripted. All the actions that come up, all the motions, all the changes, they already have people who are prepared. They're going to come up and do that. There's hardly any discussion on it. You vote on an app on your phone, and it is everything passes by 95%, 99% of the delegates. So, quite frankly, I think you're better off in class. But ISB probably doesn't want me to say that.
I didn't hear it.
So, we don't have to send anybody to it. Anybody want to volunteer?
I'll go.
You will? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shoot me some information on it. I'll do that.
Someone needs to make a motion to.
Oh, we need to make a motion to appoint you.
Make a motion to appoint Mike as the delegate. Second.
We have a motion to second to appoint Mike as the delegate. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have some sharing agreements coming here for quite a bit for soccer, swimming, and golf, it seems like. So, item E, approve athletic sharing agreements with other districts. There's one with Albia, boys and girls swimming, Moravia, boys and girls swimming, boys and girls soccer. Mormon Trail, same scenario. Udell, same thing, plus add a little football in there. And then Seymour, Again, swimming and soccer and all of them, but Wayne wants to do soccer, so.
And before he starts, I just want to say, this was based on a lot of hard work that Mr. Johnston did right away. We had a situation where last year we weren't able to have a boys soccer season. And I shared that as a concern with Mr. Johnston, and he got right into calling some of these schools and trying to find out if any would be interested in sending their kids our way to participate with their team. And he put a lot of time and effort into getting that together. I'm really pleased with his outcome on this. Now I'll let him talk to you.
So the Albia and the Moravia are kind of like previously just trying to clean up a paperwork issue or lack thereof. So we've had those in the past where our swim team is comprised of a lot of kids from Albia and Moravia, but we didn't have the paperwork on file. It was expired, so I wanted to get that on file so we were good on our end. I already filed it with the state on the assumption it would get approved tonight, since those girls are already swimming with us right now anyways. The other ones, like Ms. Taylor said, we want to do everything possible to make sure that we play soccer here this spring. And so part of that was just giving my coaches opportunities to not only recruit the halls at CHS, but also pop into these other schools to talk with kids to try to get us to that 15-ish number so that we can play both girls and boys soccer successfully this spring and not have to cancel a second straight boys season.
Yep, and I think Coach Tronas with the boys has some plans already to come in and do some subbing at the high school for the season. He got his sub authorization with our group that met here last winter to try to recruit some people, and I believe there's some, and I'm forgetting the new girls coach's name.
Lexi Solzer.
Lexi Solzer, so she had some ideas of coming in and working to try to recruit on the girls' side because they lost a lot of seniors last year, I think. So just trying to make sure those seasons happen for our kids.
I don't remember having an agreement that lasted 5 years. Is that typical? No, not opposed, but it just.
So I have to,
I
have to refile with the state every year. That was really, it's kind of, so I took it from you sent me the IASB.
Yep.
You sent me that one, and that was a 5-year one, so I just kind of plugged and played that
So that's the one we
documentation.
got from the lawyer then.
Yeah, so I just changed the school names and stuff on the one that you sent me, so it was 5 years on that one, and so I just left.
Because we emailed Danielle to make sure that we get a form that would make sense and do all the right things to protect everybody. So I guess her exemplar had 5 years on it.
Motion approved. Athletic sharing agreements with other districts as presented.
Still second.
Okay, we have a motion second to approve the sharing agreements. Thank you very much. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There we go. Be good to get some kids back in soccer. Approved activities official pay. You want to talk to us on Jared too?
I'll let Jared, because he did all the hard work on it.
Yeah, so with this one, it's just an update. So I don't know for sure which one you guys have in front of you, but the proposal I sent over had all of the SEC schools in it and what we paid before. And so really it's just bumping us up to be competitive with the other SEC schools as we're kind of all fighting over that same small group of officials and trying to make it so that more attractive for them to continue to come here and ref in Centerville opposed to going to Albia or somewhere else. So like I said, it's just kind of aligning us more with the rest of the SEC, kind of either bringing us right up to where everyone else was at or right under, depending on which exactly sport it was.
This is another one like the sum rate that we did at the end of the year where maybe those things don't get talked about at the end of every year, that we need to make any adjustments to pay for these folks, and we've fallen pretty far behind in some sports, it looks like.
After several of the cancellations last year due to lack of officials, I think we need all of them we can get. So I get a motion to approve the increase in pay for the activity officials.
I'll second that.
Motion second to approve activities official pay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Jared, for all your hard work on that one. Okay. You've been really busy getting a lot of things cleaned up, and it's been duly noted by the board, so thank you, sir. Okay, next thing is approve an amendment to the high school handbook on a hat policy.
So in this case, we're proposing the elimination of the hat policy from the high school handbook. This is something that I've been through in another district before where we made this change, and actually I think, I've told Kevin this, I think we ended up seeing actually less hats after it was okay to wear hats, which was kind of mind-boggling, but it's one of those things that a lot of schools have moved away from, and it's maybe an older policy that has been in place, and I don't want to steal all of Jenny's thunder if she wants to add anything here, but anything to add to that, do you think?
I don't know. I think it gets harder to talk about with students. I think it's like when you're trying to get students to understand the reasoning behind some of our policies. I think when I was a student in school, it was just literally seen as being disrespectful. And I would argue that I think this generation of people in general, not just our students, but even in the community, I think that it really isn't seen as a disrespectful act anymore. It's more of it's a part of their attire, I guess is the way I see that viewed. So I feel like it gets hard to argue the reasoning with students since it's really not viewed as a disrespectful act in a lot of places in our community anymore. So,
And I think we would still, I mean, something that I find important, and I know Jenny has agreed with this, there would still, even with a hats aren't a problem policy, there would still be an expectation when we do the pledge.
oh, absolutely.
When the national anthem's played, like we're doing the right respect for that.
So we've even gone as far as to say that if teachers are asking in the classroom for hats to be removed, that kids be respectful of that and remove them. You know, if you're giving a test, for instance, or if you've got a reason that you need to be able to see students' eyes, or if even just in general instruction, it bothers you as a person and you want kids to be respectful of that. We've had those conversations with students, and I think our teachers are continuing to have those conversations in successful ways. So.
Do all students have lockers?
They can have. We have, that's an opportunity. We don't make students all take a locker, but every one of them has an opportunity at any time to get one.
Okay. I don't have any problem striking the last sentence, but the sentence before the policy tends to conflict.
I think I should have struck two. I noticed that. Thank you. It says something about headgear being left in vehicles.
A head
so, yeah.
garment, a
I
head
saw it.
garment is a hat.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and as long as when it says they're supposed to keep their coats and head garments in a locker, and at one point, we were told during the design that we didn't need enough lockers for every student.
There are
New
enough lockers.
But there are enough.
There are.
We
Mhm.
didn't need enough new lockers.
Correct.
That is actually thanks to Aaron, by the
Yeah,
way, because
okay.
the ones that they saved on the third floor
Yeah.
had got, so let's see, where did he put them? He put them down the tech wing and down, you know the wing where the cutouts used to be, they've been moved
Yeah.
up further,
Yeah.
but down that towards the science wing.
Correct.
I would suggest that we strike the last sentence and the next to the last sentence.
That
Thank
makes
you.
sense.
Do that,
Okay.
keeps everybody out of trouble?
So do you
Otherwise,
make a
it's
motion
off.
with the
I would make
change?
a motion that we strike the last two sentences
Okay.
of that paragraph.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second, to amend the policy as striking those two sentences. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Good catch, Mike. All right, what everybody's been looking forward to.
Who doesn't love a good board policy? Actually, I'll admit, as I worked on these ones, I was regretting my statement that I love board policy. Very long series, there's a lot of really important stuff in this. I think kind of our biggest ones when we talk about what's in here is to think about some of the graduation requirement stuff, some of the good conduct stuff, make sure it still aligns. Generally, those policies were updated to meet state law and to meet the guidelines that we get from the associations on that. One big change is in the eligibility prior to, was that this summer or when they made the dates?
Last spring.
Spring, okay. They actually changed the days for academic eligibility at both the girls' union and the boys' association. It used to be a 30-day, and that's actually codified in Iowa code. It got changed to 20 days. So I guess it would have had to be during the legislative session. So But then a whole bunch of other fun stuff in here too. Do you wanna?
I think because there's so many in the past, we've kind of gone policy by policy, that could take a while.
Yeah.
So,
Popcorn?
well, yeah. I think, do you want to highlight some specific changes on any of them? Do you want to go those
How
policies?
about I kind of go through from the top and just hit the highlights, and then if there's questions on any others, we can
And
hit
then
that.
we'll go if there's any board members that want to have specific changes.
So 501.3 is compulsory attendance, and there are a handful of changes to this based on the new law that came out for chronic absenteeism. Essentially, now under truancy, so truancy with the county attorney, excused and unexcused absences, there's no difference. So if a student has an excused absence, that doesn't really mean that it won't count towards truancy. They have these exemptions that the state's included, and it's just important that we have that. So like if a judge or a court record would indicate that they should, if they've already obtained what they need for graduation, attending religious services. So a lot of time this is schools that do like release time or CCD or something like that. Legitimate medical reasons. Now this is not cold or something like that. This is like I'm in the hospital. Legitimate medical reason is what we kind of heard. An IEP. So this is a special education plan that might affect the child's attendance. So there are some cases where a child might have an IEP that allows them to have reduced hours or something to that effect. A 504, which is another disability document that doesn't require necessarily like learning disabilities, but maybe like diabetes plan or something like that. Not that that would reduce hours or days. Whether they're at a prep school of some sort, a non-public, receiving independent private instruction, which is one of the forms of homeschool, and competent private instruction. So those would be exemptions that would not count against the student for truancy, but would still on the new state report card count against the district for our chronic absenteeism rate.
So they'd be absent but not counted for truancy.
They'll be absent, not counted for truancy, but it's pretty rare exemptions there. They really, I think, pinned it in pretty well there on what we are required to do. There's a lot of just language cleanup to catch up. This policy was super out of date, so small things, going through some of the student records and everything to that effect. 501.9 is the new policy, and this is a completely new policy for chronic absenteeism and truancy based on so compulsory attendance needed a small change. This one has a major change to get there. You'll see we've actually taken some items recommended through various groups that Julie, Brad, and I have been in meetings with, and actually I'll give some credit. Waukee School District had done a lot of work on this policy early and was ahead of the game. So if you see it underlined and italicized, that's language that was added beyond the exemplar. And I believe that this policy is probably going to see some change before next fall too. They're talking legislatively, they want to do some cleanup on this bill and get some work for us on it. Any questions in any of that one? The same exemptions are listed there. Grading period, we take to mean semester in this case. So that, because on a quarter, you can have a very small number of absences and then be at the 10%. So at semester, then it's a little bit more realistic picture. And we do have a language in here that allows us to turn our hours into days. So like if you have a kid who's tardy every day by 2 hours, then that adds up and eventually becomes a day. Because that's a pretty big deal. You're missing that first and second period and probably not getting a good grade in English class or something then. Okay. 501.9R1 is just right to go along with that. And it's more of the what we will do when this happens. And I think this is probably important to address for the board to know. When a student would reach 10% absence from a grading period, the student is considered chronically absent, and that's the state language that they use and the information they get. At that point, we're required to provide notice to the county attorneys that this student is in danger of being considered, well, they're chronically absent and they're in danger of needing truancy work to be done. We also notify the student and the student's parent about that. We actually notify the parent via certified mail. That's part of the new rules from the state for that. Further absences could result in disciplinary and legal ramifications for the family. We put in some earlier notice that we think is important for our families to know about. And that's the underlined in that second paragraph, which is after 5 days in a grading period, we will send a letter home that their student is considered at risk of being chronically absent. I'm kind of hearing this number is pretty universal out there. I know the district that I previously came from, that was when we sent our first letter to, and that was before the law, so this is kind of a catch up a little bit here. And then they'll also receive a notice after 8 days in grading period about potential consequences and next steps, just because we feel that informing the parents along the way is going to be a good way to help try to prevent the county attorney needing to be involved. There's language in here about a school engagement meeting when the student reaches 15% of the hours in a grading period. This is actually required in the new law, so this is an opportunity for the school, somebody, probably Brad most times, but maybe the principal, maybe a counselor with Brad, the student's parent and the student to come together and talk about what we need to do to help get the kid to school, which this is a good tool, and this is actually what Attendance Works recommends doing early in the process as you try to intervene, is to get everybody together around the table and talk about what the barriers are and try to address those. We will set up at that meeting an absenteeism prevention plan, which actually we have to notify the county attorney of that plan so that they can be aware of what the plan is and what we're doing. And it talks about the truancy process here. So 20% of the days in the grading period, they'll be considered truant, and we are to then notify the county attorney at that point. The attendance reporting procedures just talks about how we record attendance at each level. So at elementary level, they take it twice, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. Typically, you're not too worried about an elementary kid skipping second period. So that doesn't really affect that, and it's pretty tied down at an elementary school where you see that. And then it's taken every period at Howard in high school. And we changed, I think in some of our language before, we had secondary listed as 7-12 and elementary listed as K-6. So this is kind of moving it into the language that aligns with our school district. Then it talks about disciplinary items with this. And a couple things to note. We're essentially giving, and this is what a lot of schools are doing, 2 health-related absences that while they're not, they'll be exempted in the case of I got COVID and I need to stay home. So we're not trying to have people come to school sick. And again, with proper documentation beyond that, we are able to exempt other medical items. So like I went to the doctor and the doctor said, you have to be out for 5 days because this is strep Z or whatever, and you just need to be out for that time. It doesn't allow us, the way that this is set up, to exempt, and we get a handful of these. This is one thing that we'll communicate with our healthcare providers so they're aware. We get a lot of letters that say this, I did not see this person, but mom says that he has a sore throat. So that would not count as an exempted medical reason at that point, because we're asking for somebody who's actually seen them. Now we give the leeway, and I'm hoping that this doesn't become a nightmare for our nurses, but we kept extra nurses. That if the nurse sends a kid home or sees a kid and says, "Yeah, we need you to be at home for that," those could be considered medically exempt. So our nurses would be considered medical professionals in that case to be able to do that. Let's see. We put in, I think I shared maybe one of my weeks with the weekly updates. We had, the way that Power School worked before, if you were gone to, like, say 8th grade, you went to the football game. Like you're on the football team and you had to get on the bus 8th period. It actually counted that as absent time for students. So we've worked with the people from the state to get proper coding, that they will be still considered present, but the teachers will see on their end that student wasn't in class for that time. So there's a certain code that'll do that. Because I think if I'm a teacher in the classroom, I want to know, yeah, that's right, Billy was gone from my class on Thursday. So if he says I don't have that assignment, he's telling me the truth. Specifically, and a lot of districts have put in language that family trips and vacations are not considered exempt absences. They will be, they would be unexcused absences and would count towards the threshold for reporting. And we did put a line, we recognize these do occur, however, and request proactive communication to try to get the work to the kid so that they can work on that and be involved in that. At the high school level, there is a loss of credit clause for 20 unexcused absences in a class, and previously warned at 15 unexcused absences at the family engagement meeting. Prior to imposing loss of credit, the principal will provide a student opportunity for a hearing. If the parent and the student disagree with the decision of the principal, they can file it for an appeal to the superintendent within 5 days, and then we'll give an answer there, and we put it to end at that level. Now that's all language taken from other districts, so that's something that we wanted to do otherwise with, but what I would hate to do is bog down our board meetings with, you know, folks who are not showing up to school wanting an appeal on when they have to lose a class. I think that's probably a rough thing to put you guys through. There's not much else that's exciting in that one. That was nothing, that was a small one, right?
But, so, if they're absent for 10%, that information goes to the county attorney, but they don't do anything with it.
Not at that point, no, not until they get to the 20%, then they're considered truant. Yep,
Have you talked to the county attorney?
Brad has actually about it. He's had a couple meetings with him, so actually Brad had brought these policies for him to look at and make sure that he was comfortable with understanding kind of what we're gonna do. And if the warning that we give will, and the meetings will rise to the level where he feels he can back us up on the prosecution side if we do have to get to that point. Because I hope we don't have to. I hope everybody's at school and doing their thing. But when or if we would need to use it, we want to make sure that we've done enough that he feels comfortable doing his role in this.
But the majority of this was a major push from the legislature.
Yeah, almost all this language is from them. Yeah,
So I mean, there is a problem
yeah.
statewide.
Well, and it's even bigger than that. It's nationwide right now. And it's so, it was starting a little bit before COVID where attendance rates were starting to drop, but it dropped precipitously after COVID and continues to do so nationwide. With our SIAC meeting last year, we talked about attendance rates. We're slightly better in some grade levels than the state average and slightly worse in other grade levels. So we straddle the line with the state average. And we believe that just putting a concerted effort into let's track it, let's communicate with people, and let's try to find solutions for individual families, we believe that we can make a real dent into it. I also think probably the poor accounting for being gone for an activity really probably hurt us, because one of the areas where we had a lower attendance rate was at the secondary level. So we think we'll probably clean some things up there too. And this is now, the attendance is now included in the school's report card from the state. So it's test scores and attendance that they'll judge the school based on.
Does our software reflect?
It's better now.
everything we need?
Yeah, it's better now. Emily and Brad had to do a lot of work to get the coding right. They had to work with the people at Power School there's something on the back end. They gotta check this box and uncheck that box and everything. But now it'll actually show up in the state report that gets pulled out of it the right way for who was actually present, who was not present. Which I think, again, I think that's gonna help us a lot.
Yeah, just to get it more accurate.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about, how many times like baseball season alone, baseball and golf, or like during the year, how many times you have to leave early, because sometimes they'll start games at 2 o'clock and you're still playing at 10 o'clock at night with baseball. That's why I'm a football guy, just a little tighter timelines here, but, so there's a lot of that, I think, that impacted us. Okay, keep pulling through here for you. A couple of policy numbers reserved throughout, just there isn't anything in the exemplar for that, and someday they'll create a policy and probably call it that number, so we kept that there. New policy on pregnant students from the state since we were last updated. pretty self-explanatory on that one, and just doing the right thing to help make sure a kid can graduate, I think is the big thing with that. Open enrollment transfer procedures are updated based on the reinstating of the deadline that happened at the end of the legislative session, and receiving and sending district, those got updated. No big updates here. Vandalism had a couple little updates, but nothing major. We're coming up to the big one, which is the new cell phone policy from the state here in a little bit. And that one is a really well-written policy. That came in the primer that came out last week, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to scroll to it here for you. This was, it was great because when I saw what IASB had written, it really aligned with what we put into our handbooks and what we're asking for our staff to enforce. And I don't want to rob my superintendent report at all by sharing this now, but I've heard good reports from about every level of the organization. I will say, I think the good reports I've heard from students are probably sometimes reluctantly shared. Like, yeah, I guess I have talked to people more, and I have probably focused a little bit better not having my cell phone. You know, probably not going to get from teenagers too often. I think it's great we can't have our phones, but some positives hearing from kids on that. Let's see, LEG. Some updates on parking stuff with motor vehicles. Student conduct had some updates to meet the new language. Redefining, so our discipline policies were kind of outdated, like defining expulsion, defining suspension, when we can use those, were really out of date from the exemplar. So you'll notice like some of them are fully crossed out and just a new one put in because it was just so far out that it didn't align. Luckily, we haven't needed to use expulsion to date, but and hopefully we never do. Were there any that, oh, okay, here's one. 503.3R2, and it's all crossed out. This is an optional policy that doesn't line up with some of the IASB policies, but it is something that we can keep, and this is on student fee refunds and late entry charges. So in this case, we had a situation where a student had been with us for the first part of the year last year, had paid their student fees and wanted a refund of part of the student fees when they left. So it was this policy that allowed us to do that. Without that, we were not able to do refunds. It doesn't line up with IASB policies. It really seems like it would be a smart cross out in this case, but if it's something we feel strongly about being able to do refunds, we could keep that. Hearing none.
How do you calculate the refund of the student fees?
So it is, so our current policy is, before the end of the first quarter, they get 75% of the criminal fee. No, it's okay. After the first quarter, but before the end of the semester, it's 50%. After the start of the second semester.
I guess mine goes more of a, if a student comes back in.
Well, and that's a thing that could hit us with that, right?
So then how do you charge them to come back in?
Right.
I guess that was probably what my question should have been phrased as.
No, you could. Yeah, that's, I mean, there is a policy here for what to do if a student enters, so I guess you would bill, refund, bill at that point under this policy. And in the case of students who move, because we have transients for a number of reasons in our district, right? But in the case of a student who would move from one place, say here, over to Wayne and back, that would be a case where that would be the thing to do for
I
that.
don't know how often that happens, but it's just, I hadn't thought about it until you said that they are here, they leave, and they come back. So.
Right. Ones that I crossed out and put this optional policy on, that this is optional on, these are ones that when we did our IASB reviewed our policies, these are ones that they said this doesn't align with IASB policy, check with your lawyer if you're gonna keep this one. And there's some things I think it's probably on the iffy side with the, what do you call that, the policy, the procedures you have to follow for accounting, generally accepted,
Yeah,
what's that?
yeah.
Yeah, generally accepted accounting procedures. It's probably on the iffy side with it. I think we thought it's legal technically, but it's super gray. I recommend we scrap it, if that's something that you guys are comfortable, but I mean, I'm not married.
Scrapping which one?
Scrap the, well, really both of them. Let's see, what was the other one?
503.3.
So
R2, 503.
you're saying not refund.
Not doing refunds, because that's the iffy part. Schools aren't really supposed to write checks out to people for stuff very often.
Okay.
And
I
it's
think
a
I've
really
done
tight,
one in the 5 years I've been.
yeah. It's a really tight line, and you have to be ready to give a good explanation to your auditor on that one. Now, the one place where that's not true though is the school lunch program. So if somebody would pay money into their account for school lunch, you very much are allowed to make, and required to make refunds out of that. You're not allowed to have a policy to keep that money.
That makes sense.
What do you think, Lisa?
I would say it's not in the, primer, yeah. There's no reason for it.
We don't need an auditor talking about that.
We don't enjoy that.
So the consensus is 503,
You know, they find one thing, they gotta do one.
Yeah.
So,
That's, yeah. And she runs a tight ship with
I
it.
would say we need to strike it.
Same thing with 503.3 R3.
Yeah, so, that one specifically lost textbook replacement fee schedule. I'll be honest with you, we rarely, a lot of our textbooks are electronic now. We could do this, but in my experience, how do they say that? Most of the time when you've got lost textbooks, it's a blood from a turnip kind of situation. Okay, all right. Good conduct rule really doesn't have a lot of changes, because this is something that the committee put a lot of work into. There were just some new words that we had to include. It still behaves the same way, good conduct. But it's just cleaning up some shalls and some, there's a sentence in the middle about students who fail to abide by the policy may be subject to disciplinary measures, changing the wording over that. Again, 503.4R1 is more on how that works. So the big change, I think that's in this one. I want to make sure that I'm right about that. Yeah, the big change here is eliminating the words up to on first offense, second offense, third or more offense. I believe that it's really important that we be very precise and consistent student to student how we enforce these rules. And I think if we give the up to, that gives us an opportunity to say, this kid's only gonna get one game, this kid is gonna get the maximum 2 games they can get. And I think if we're consistent on every kid, then I think that's when we know we're being fair. And that,
This is good conduct, not academic.
right, that is now separate. So our policy had kind of enforced some similarities on them before. And you'll notice in 503.4R2, academic standards is crossed out in there because that's about good conduct policy and how it applies, and not about the academic eligibility, which is ruled by the state at that point in the state code. We have local control over good conduct. The state and the associations with the state control academic eligibility, and that's 503.4R3. And the big change there is to change one wording. So our policy had read, any student who fails to pass all credited coursework for any semester will be required. It seems to me, as I looked at other schools in the state exemplar, they went with the phrasing, and this is probably minutia, but any student who fails to pass all courses for which credit is given. Just to make it very clear that any course that you get a credit for does serve as an item for
To
ineligibility.
include AP and concurrent.
All the stuff, yeah, since we have some AP classes in place now, current enrollment courses, the courses with the, like the welding academy and all that would count. And then the reduction of the 30 to 20 calendar days, which was done, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding that the reason that the association and the union lowered the number of days is it had a disproportionate effect on winter sports. When you're out for 30 days of like a fall sport or a spring sport, there's more time that those activities happen. So 30 days doesn't cut quite as much as if you have to miss December of basketball season. I don't know if that's the right one because I don't do basketball very much. I like
Could
to
have
watch
multiple
it.
games a week.
Yeah, you're missing a lot more time, which I think the idea was to try to make it a little bit more fair, to go to the 20. Is that, am I hitting that kind of right?
Yeah, they actually went a step further too and identified exact dates for each sport across each year. That comes out, it's a sheet that comes out that signifies the exact dates that a student would be ineligible for those exact sports. So it's pretty black and white now, and it's left a lot less to interpretation, which is helpful.
Right. And we've spent some time learning about eligibility and academic eligibility specifically this fall. The recommendation from the gentleman at the Iowa High School Sports Association, and actually a couple other experienced superintendents that I go to and kind of count on for knowledge on how to handle. I'm a music guy, so I have to ask questions in the sports world. Is in the paragraph before middle school policy there, and I just want to read this to you to see if it makes sense. In order to serve an eligibility period with an activity, the student must remain a member of the team or activity in which the period is served for the entire season. If a student does not complete the season with said team or activity for the entire season, he or she will serve the ineligibility period during the next activity in which he or she is involved. So that is, I can't get my grade on June 3rd and say, I know baseball's been going for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I'm gonna start now, be out for baseball for 20 days, and then be good to go for the fall. It's to follow, and what IHSA had said was, what you're doing if you encourage kids to do that kind of thing is you're really defeating the purpose of the academic eligibility policy. Is you're saying, well, let's just find something you don't really want to do and get you involved in that. So this is kind of based on some language that I got from them to put in there, and I really think we're wise to include that so that we're upholding that standard. Middle school policy is a little different. That's all middle school academic eligibility is a local decision. You could even not have an academic eligibility at the middle school level locally. This is the same policy we've had, and it's really worked pretty well for us. And it includes a lot of grade checks throughout the grading period, and really working to be, as you think, as a kid gets younger, right? The consequence needs to be more immediate, and the reward for doing the right thing has to be more immediate. So this gives us that ability to really stay on top of a situation and help a kid in that moment when they're still, everything about them is changing every minute of their day. And it's worked pretty well for us from what we've seen. Any questions in that area?
I think we need to keep it in those school policies, so.
Yeah, it really does work pretty well for us.
It also kind of present for high school, so.
And I worked under that with my music kids. Like we fell under that same policy there, and it really helped us out. A lot of law updates on physical restraint, seclusion. These aren't things that we have a ton of in our world. The world that I came from before, that was a little bit bigger deal, but it's still required policy to have, and it's good to have it in there because that's something that does happen outside the district. We did update the form for that, and there's some required meetings that you've got to have, so we have the forms for those and everything. Let's see here. Needed a real mouse to scroll through this, I apologize. Student disclosure of identity, this was a big one last fall. We got an updated policy here from IASB in the second to last exemplar, or the second to last policy primer that came out. And this is about students who wish to go by a different name, meeting the new state law. So there's some parent notification in there, making sure that we're maintaining the rules in the law there. So pretty boilerplate info, but something that we needed to have in our policy to be to be compliant. And we've got an example, a form in there of how we notify and get parental permission. So if a student wants to go by a different name. Now, there was I think you probably heard it like in the news and everything when this was going on. There was a big hubbub about like, well, if I'm William, can I be called Bill? And generally, it's been accepted. It seems like it's kind of worked out in most places that that's not something that anybody's going after. It's more if I want to change something bigger about my name. So pretty straightforward on that. Somebody can request or we can notify. 503.8 is our one with our famous little link. That's the policy from the School Board Association. Wish it were a little bit bigger, though it does get defined in 503.8 R1, which we put in the last time we updated some of those policies in January. 503.9 is the good fun one. This is our personal electronic devices, aka cell phones policy. And this lines up very well with what we've got. It does give not an exemption, but some freedom to students with a 504 health plan or an IEP. So one time that might be appropriate. There are some diabetic tracking devices that can go like through a cell phone, or like one of my students that I had before had like a little tablet for it. So it's something that we're not having it out, we're not playing games on it, Candy Crush or anything, but we're tracking our blood sugar there. So that's really what that kind of thinks towards there. And there probably are other health things that as time goes on, we may be able to see some more uses. I mean, healthcare has really done a good job of trying to put some of those tools that are out there for kids to send it to a personal device so that they can have better tracking. It does talk about kind of what would happen in the next chunk there. Let's see, it's down here, 503.9, page 2. Does talk about what happens if you have it out. So student can pick it up at the end of the day the first time. Parent or guardian will be notified. After that, the parent or guardian would need to be the one to pick it up. And we believe that's probably a good plan, just because if Corey Taylor is getting his phone out in class, I want to know about it, because then Corey Taylor's not going to probably have a very fun night that night, which is most nights. So, to be honest, does that policy kind of look like it hits the notes that we were wanting to hit for everybody? It really lines up with what we did with the handbook, so I'm just kind of looking to see if we feel pretty good about that being there. I really think it's not required, but I really think having it in the handbook or in the board policy is probably a good backup for that handbook.
It is.
How's it going so far? Can I ask? How far?
It's going great. We keep a spreadsheet. Those kids come to the office and Ashley assists them in making that phone call. So at the high school level, it's going really, really well. And to be honest with you, the feedback that we've gotten from some kids through teachers being deliberate and asking some of those questions is that I think there's a sense of relief from some of our students to not have the pressure of answering that or having to deal with the cell phone constantly all the time. So I'm amazed at the number of comments that I've gotten just with it's maybe a good thing, and students are appreciative of it. Maybe
Because they're getting texts from or something from other
interruptions.
kids.
Yeah, just constant interruptions, constant distractions. So I feel like it's going really, really well. I really do. I think our teachers are in favor of it. They're doing a great job, and I think our students are really doing a really good job with it as well.
Good, thank you.
There's been a number of articles out in a number of states. Some states have actually banned cell phones in their state and schools. And from what we heard for our legislative updates, that's being bandied about in our state house too, as a possible idea for this legislative session. I think what I'm reading, kind of boots on the ground in other places where this is happening too, you're seeing kids interact with each other more. There was an article on some schools and they're banned too, and they're braiding hair, they're talking. Yeah, I think that the catch line to the article is something like, it's crowded in the cafeteria, and that's great. I mean, our kids have so little face-to-face interaction in the world that they've got right now, so we're kind of getting hopefully some mental health benefit out of this. There's a major book that everybody's kind of been talking about with this, the anxious generation, I think is what it's called, right? And I can't remember the guy's name right now, but really a lot of research telling us that this cell phone use is really having a negative impact on young people's mental health. So hopefully this helps us do the right thing to help our kids get where they need to be and be successful in life. Student organizations had a few updates, just kind of spelling out who can be involved. This is 5042. When there's an employee that assists, when there's not. Certain groups need parental consent for participation, and others don't. So just a little bit there to kind of catch up with the law from when it was last written. Let's see here. Student Performances has a new code, 5044. None of this was in our policy before, and this is, I don't believe it's actually a terribly new policy from the exemplar, so it's good to have that in there, so we can have some information about that. Student fundraising, pretty similar to what we've had, but one thing is collection boxes for school fundraising must have prior approval from the principal before being put on school property. That's like where our small group is doing a collection for such and such. And that's a pretty small level, like the principal can approve, you know, given to this charity or that charity. Children's Hospital is one that people often will do a fundraiser for, like a coin drive. Student activity program is not very changed. Well, no, I lied. There's one crossed out there. So there's some changes to some of the items on here. Student volunteers is crossed out. There's been some work done on work programs for students. So there's a few policies that kind of got combined into the one that still exists. Progress reports, just kind of updating on when we have grading periods there. Promotion and retention. There was a state law that changed that if a student is not proficient and the parent wants to retain that student in the current grade for the next year, the parent or guardian gets final say on that. So that is a change from what the law used to be. And I think in a lot of cases, you know, we want to work with parents on that anyway. I think we've done a lot of that work with the TK program in the past, and you can still advise them, you know, in this case, maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's not a good idea, but it rests with the parent for final decision on that, which is perfectly fair.
Have you ever seen that happen?
Rarely. There's a few cases where you run into it. I mean, when I was an elementary principal, I had a few parents request retentions. In each case, I probably would have agreed with them, to be honest with you. I mean, we did agree, and that was when the school made the final decision. You know, what we usually like to do is evaluate as we get closer to the end of the year. Like usually we'll say, let's meet in early May, evaluate a couple concerns we have, and make the decision together at the end of the year. But generally, the parents have a pretty good pulse on that stuff and work pretty well with their teachers. You know, you spend that whole year with that teacher, and if you know, a certain teacher that you have come to trust, you can trust probably that opinion. 505.4R is honors and awards, and we do most of these awards. We just don't have to have it in board policy to offer them. So it's nice to leave the flexibility to be able to continue to change awards as our students' lives change. So I'm recommending crossing that one out and leaving that as a administrative regulation, so that maybe if they want to add an attendance award, which could well be a thing, we can do that. Graduation requirements. Here's the fun one. The self one was halfway fun. This one's really fun. We have a big decision to make at the board table, and I think I've gotten an idea from many of you in just our conversations along the way. The state no longer requires financial literacy for high school graduation. Some districts are keeping it, some districts are dropping it. I feel pretty strongly personally about financial literacy. I think it's a big deal, but if this is something that we as a team didn't feel strongly about, what we would simply do is we would eliminate that requirement and then add another elective for each of the diplomas. Is there a strong opinion on what we want to do?
If there's anything I've heard over time, is I wish they taught in school was the financial literacy.
Yeah.
So
I'm very disappointed it was removed at the state level.
I think it needs to stay.
You know,
I would keep it.
I think that's
I would-
smart for our kids.
I'm partial to that, but, I mean, I see it day in, day out, 4.0 students that don't know the first thing about credit, how to get credit, this, that, and the other. I don't like one's enough,
Right.
but it's a start.
Let me ask you, aren't those the ones that took the class?
That's what I'm saying, I'm not saying that it's the right coursework.
Well, I'm saying, is that a course that we maybe need to review?
Maybe. I mean, I think Jenny, as she's coming in, she's kind of looking at that. I believe, and I'm not trying to speak out of turn, so if you need to punch me later, please feel free. I believe we probably have some course book review to do before next fall. As Jenny has come in, she's had some really good ideas about things that probably should get a little tweaked so that we're kind of up with the times and not behind the times. So I think a lot of that will probably come your way. I'm trying to remember who teaches financial literacy. Is that Luxembourg?
People,
We actually have that, it's in multiple spaces right now.
Okay.
multiple places.
So,
And so it might be a good idea when we do some of our vertical alignment and some of our PLC work, we can definitely explore if that's still, talk to the teachers and see if what needs it's hitting and kind of work from that angle.
And the curriculum that we purchased for Algebra 2 this year is a financial-based Algebra 2 curriculum, so they're hitting it. It's not specifically what you're talking about, but it's another piece of that.
And that gives relevance. I mean, a lot of times what we work at two things in education to really make a class a good class: rigor and relevance. Because relevance gives the student the reason to want to do the work. And I think when we start talking about making Algebra 2 have a financial component to it, it's a lot easier when you're talking dollars and cents to realize, yeah, I'm probably gonna wanna know some of that. I'd like to have some of those dollars and cents, that is.
so, and I do also plan, not to get us too far off the
Yeah.
wagon, but I know I talked to you and Mr. Warren last year about it. And this is in no way a plug of my company. It is just a community involvement thing that we've done with Aldea, the community schools, for probably the last 15 years. It's a financial literacy simulation where we go in for 2 days. One day is straight classroom time, doing it with the entire junior class. And then the second day is a real world simulation. I know there was a grant program last year that several other schools participated in. You know, that's something that we've knocked on doors for many years trying to get into this district.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, just been that for 5 years. So I do want to, at some point, extend my marketing outreach.
Having a junior daughter, I would love to hear her get some guidance so she stops by and can just watch Starbucks all the time.
There's no guarantees on that.
That's
There's
a shot.
It is a fantastic program. There's no marketing spin to it at all. We literally just bring people in from our branches. And we do everything that we are not supposed to do in our job. We try to break their budget, try to
Yeah.
to get them to go bankrupt. And it's
Sounds fun.
within 2-3 years, we've gotten people, into homes at 18 and 19 years old.
That's
And
awesome.
they cite that experience, so.
Let's make sure that we'll follow up on that. There is one thing in here, now that we're gonna be done after this year with catching up from years of neglect to our policies, this one has, the required courses of study will be reviewed by the board annually. There is a series of board policies that we're required to review every year. And my plan would be, up one of our fall meetings, probably to just come back and say, here's the required policies in an item here. There are some edits, there aren't some edits, so it's like 12 or 13 that we have to review. Graduation requirements, okay, there's some stuff about getting credit for the legislative page program that we hadn't had before. There's something about special education students and how some courses count there. The unnumbered policy here, I apologize for that mistake, I'm gonna fix that one. This would be an R1 for this. It just says high school graduation at the top and then crossed out as starting with graduating class of 2023. This is our various diplomas that we offer. We have the honors diploma, we have the standard diploma, and the core diploma. A big change that has been requested frequently by parents of students, and I can kind of give you some reasons for that, is under the honors diploma, different ways to earn honors, the honors diploma, and to earn graduating with honors than simply taking concurrent enrollment classes. We had a pretty stringent policy for that before that required a significant amount of college coursework to graduate from high school with honors. And as you say that, it kind of sounds a little bit odd, right? So what I'm proposing is a change to 2 ways to earn the honors diploma, to complete all the courses that are required through the school there, and to be 3.5 cumulative GPA or higher, or maintain a 3.0 cumulative GPA or higher while successfully completing at least 5 credits of concurrent enrollment or AP courses, which can include CTE concurrent enrollment courses. So allowing for a slightly lower GPA if you take some challenging college courses, I think gives a little bit of incentive to want to do that if you're a kid who can do that. But giving the option, we had a student that I guess he went off this year to college, and he was not eligible for as long at a junior college because of the number of credits he had already earned here. So he had a reduced amount of eligibility there. And I think to take that opportunity away from a kid that maybe could get, I don't know how much scholarship money junior colleges give, I'm not really up on that, but an opportunity to maybe get that's something that we don't really want to do to our kids.
That seems like an awful heavy workload for a high school student.
It is, and I will tell you, we've talked a lot this fall about, when do we allow taking college courses? And I think we probably are gonna, as we go through the year, have some more things that we'll want to bring back at some point about how do we make sure that we're guaranteeing our students are successful. That we have a great partnership there where we've got a lot of good courses available to us through Indian Hills, and we want to take advantage of that, but we want to take advantage of it in a way that we're not setting our students up for any failure there. So putting them in too early, putting them in before maybe they're ready, just really evaluating it. Jenny had a really great back to school meeting with the families that are taking Indian Hills courses, and really talked about kind of one change that really throws parents, and it threw me my first time Katie took the college classes. As the parent, when a student enrolls in a concurrent enrollment course or a post-secondary course, they are no longer, for the purposes of that, considered like a minor, like you don't have access to their records. They have to grant you access to their records. So we really kind of communicated about that. I think Jill Whistler was pretty helpful in that communication too, because she's, remember, our shared college and career transition coordinator, so she's got a good kind of foot in both worlds to help us out. And I think there's been a lot of communication this year on just how that world's a little bit different. Our core diploma is our normal diploma. It's just not graduating with honors, but oh no, I'm sorry, I lied. That's our standard diploma. I skipped that to begin with. Our core diploma is the diploma that many of our students from the alternative school often get. So it does have, it essentially meets just the state requirements, except leaving financial literacy based on our decision there. It does require less courses than our standard diploma requires, and I think a lot of times that's because it's tough right now for our alternative students to get a lot of electives where they are. We're really working to encourage some of those students to continue taking some electives on the main campus as we go, but that's kind of one of the reasons for that. And that's only, we did put a note, only available with administrative approval. We're really working on, some of the guidance I feel like I've gotten from this team is, let's make sure that we're using the alternative programming that we have in legitimate cases, and it's not a large percentage of our population. So Jenny's really done a lot of good work to really use the new at-risk program that we've got there and try to direct people through a process to actually try to succeed at CHS before we would consider alternative programming. And again, there's just a little bit there about students with individualized education plans and some legal reference update at the bottom. The 505.7R was kind of redundant to what we had in the one with diplomas. So just eliminating some of that redundancy. The concentrations, like on page 141, that's old language that had been in place prior to the new policy, and it was left in because that just they had to leave it for some grades that were there. And to speak back to that change to the honors diploma, my assumption and what we would be able to do based on if we would adopt this policy is that that would start immediately, and it doesn't make it any harder for somebody to graduate with honors. It actually gives more opportunity to graduate with honors. So like our seniors this year would have kind of a second opportunity there. If they've kept maintained a high GPA and they maybe haven't taken the college courses, they may still qualify for honors that way. But anybody who was going using the old path will already get there, as long as they kept the 3.0 if we adopted it that way. So that's just to try to give our students the chance of having that. Early graduation, I did leave the note in there from IASB just to make sure. And we've had various conversations about early graduation, and the trick here is we don't have the authority to limit when a student may graduate early. So if a student would come to us after we've brought to the table a group of early graduates, but they've met the standards for that, we still have to allow that. So that's just, it was kind of a change to what I had thought before, so I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that one. That note obviously won't stay in that policy long range. I believe we did put in that they're allowed to walk with their class though, which is a good thing.
So they graduate semester, they're sort of long.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and that's how our policy has been and what we've done.
That's what I thought it was gonna be, so.
And honestly, that made for some really great moments on the day of graduation, I thought, because there were definitely some kids who were in that boat.
virtual school that they did? What was the deal?
Homeschool. And
Homeschool.
The homeschool students would walk.
Okay, but the virtual still does, well, we don't have the virtual, but yes.
Right, but when we would have somebody that would get there, on the ones that were already in, as long as they meet the requirements of the diploma, they would walk. In the commencement policy, 505.7, we did talk a little bit about spelling out some of our cords that people can wear, so the honors you can get at commencement. Talked about using the gold cord for honors. We did put in the silver cord that students can get there. Let's see. National Honor Society has an NHS cord, but we did put a restriction on no alternative or additional stoles. So that's the, if you've never been in choir before, that's the part that's up here on a graduation gown sometimes. I don't think ours actually have a stole on them, the ones we've been using. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I thought in the past, like, somebody like was in the National Guard or something like that.
Yeah, okay, that is, yes.
How's that listed?
That might be coming up here. There's a way, they're able to, if you're in the National Guard, if you want to use your uniform.
I thought I saw some stories before about that.
Okay. We haven't had any,
Maybe I just, it's been a while.
but I think at that point, we want to alter
Yeah,
this,
what's
because
the
I think
name?
if somebody's going to serve our nation, we want to make sure we're not getting
Like,
anything.
it might have been a long time since I saw it, but so, no, they weren't uniform, but it had like an Iowa National Guard stole, but because they had listed, they're doing basic training, so.
We can do some digging on that. I might bring back, if that is the case, I might ask on second reading to make that adjustment.
And I may have an
Because I don't want to hold back if a kid is serving the country, not acknowledging that.
We probably would never have that issue here, but in Alaska, it's a very big issue. that Native students want to wear something to reflect their culture. And so, I don't know if you can think about that or about that, or
Yeah.
it probably never would come up.
What if we put in a line like exemptions may be considered by administration?
Put a little something there, I think.
I think you're opening up the door.
Yes.
That is gonna be, you let me, but you like
Won't let
that,
me.
you won't let me.
That's a fair point. Let me dig
I
around
don't
and see.
know.
Let me
It's
dig.
probably not an issue, but it has been an issue in other school districts.
There may be some schools that have some language to that effect though, and I've got a few in mind that I'm
Might
wondering
think
if
about
we
it.
can't look at their board policies and maybe steal something for that. Because that's fair. I mean, we want to make sure everybody feels like they get to be included the way that they.
You got a font issue on 153.
What's that?
Page 153, you got a font issue. Just-
Yeah, that's probably some copying over from the exemplar. The exemplar
Okay.
uses
Okay.
a very weird font.
Yep,
Um,
all right.
Family involvement policy was updated to meet the Title I requirements that changed a while back. And did I tell you this is a long one? Access to records, this is pretty standard stuff that ours was pretty outdated on. So just making sure that that's all clean and kosher. Okay, juvenile justice items, small little edits in there, but all still kind of working with our local juvenile justice system to make sure that we're working with kids who need some additional support in that area. Student directory information had a small change. These are kind of the biggest ones that we've already addressed. I don't know if there were some that maybe people had that they wanted to make sure I addressed, but the rest of these get a lot smaller. Some health adjustments to keep up with the law. Were there any that people saw that they want to make sure I address? I don't want to bore you, but I don't want to underinform you either.
Just for clarification, so the people at home can pay attention, the head lice policy was removed, and that is.
Yes, and that's based on state guidance on that. So this, and I can't remember the name of this union now, so it's going to get me wrong, but the State Nurses Association or union or whatever it's called has deemed that head lice is a, what do they call it, a nuisance rather than a health concern. And the state actually doesn't allow, we're not even allowed to do, like back when we were kids, you would maybe get a note home that would say, there's head lice in your class, start checking your kid. We're really not allowed to do that anymore. It's considered a privacy issue at this point. And I know that one kind of draws, thank you for bringing that up actually, that one kind of draws some ire sometimes out there. And unfortunately, based on the laws, we just aren't allowed to report on that anymore. We do have some services with the school. I will tell you, I've talked to the nurses, there are some students who maybe don't have the means to deal with lice at home, and we have some nice people who have donated to the nurses to be able to have the lice treatment stuff, and they'll do some treatments at school there. The elementary, they get cute about it, and they're like, oh, it's like a beauty shop, and we're gonna do your hair today and help you out. Like I'm very pleased with the way that our nurses respect the dignity of our kids when they deal with things like that. A kid never feels like they're in a position to, well, I'm a problem because I've got this, and they do a really good job about it. But we are always open to additional donations in that area, because I will say that is something that, every school.
Is it still a big issue?
Every school on earth, yeah. Any gathering of people, it's an issue with. It's, I remember when I was an elementary principal at the public school in town, in my previous town, we would get like, oh, it's your kids. And then we'd find out the next day, oh, the private school's going through it too. So it's not a wealthy, not wealthy thing. It's not a dirty and clean. In fact, my understanding is lice actually kind of likes cleaner hair, which I don't keep much hair for it. But so it definitely draws people's attention, the lice policies. Again, the rest of these are pretty boring policies. Anything else that kind of stuck out to anybody that we should address? Sorry to give you a whole big policy series.
This sort of last thing.
No, I think we have one more. I can't remember which one now.
Any questions, comments from the board? And then we're gonna have to go on to the start of the there's just a few of them on the 200.
I apologize. There is one more that there's some information there. I would like your permission to work with my admin team to make some decisions on this and bring back to the second reading. 507.9 R1 has some highlighted materials. These are our wellness regulation, and some work has been done by the food service on this because they're required to be involved in wellness. Lynette had done some work before, and I think Kate has started some work with this now. We just have to list goals. Wellness goals, so like things like providing knowledge and skills necessary to promote and protect their health, and just kind of hitting a few certain areas. And I'd like to take that to my admin team to look at if that's okay with y'all for the second meeting, to have some actually aligned goals instead of just the ones that they recommend in case we need anything locally. Thank you. Sorry, that's all I got.
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay. Questions, comments on the 500 series? Otherwise, a motion to approve the first reading.
So moved.
A motion second to approve the first reading of the 500 series. Board policies, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? And I'll say this, Mr. Taylor, that's a tremendous amount of work. Thank you very much. It was.
I
know
would,
you put a lot
I
of
would
hours
normally
into it.
say it was fun, but maybe I'll do it shorter so you
Yeah.
can say that next time.
Okay. I know you put a ton of hours and, you know, and just so that you get a little recognition from the board, all the policies that were so far out of date, and the work that you've done over the last 2 years, it's very, very much appreciated that you've taken this seriously. So
Thank you. Good news is we've got policies up to date for our kids now.
Okay, approved first reading board policies as listed there. There's a dozen of them or so, going from 200 to 905.3.
So a small edit to board member social media engagement. This is kind of based on, I guess, in some cases, people in the community were holding boards accountable for board member individual speech on their social media. It clearly spells out now in this policy that only the board president is designated as official spokesperson, authorized to speak on behalf of the board, and that will communicate via official social media, not through individual board members' social media. It doesn't completely protect on that. You may still get somebody who tries to use that, but it gives a little bit of protection. When I saw that one, I thought that's a pretty nice little item there. Little
And
word.
I will just say, it's not something that I want, nor do I communicate on my own in social media, so. I will just say, I've been to a lot of IASB training on the pitfalls and the slippery slope of board members posting on social media. And the only thing I would say on that is, if you're on social media as a board member, and you post something and another board member posts something, you probably ought to withdraw from any further comment, because what can be construed by the public is you're now debating board policy. And so if you want to, it says you have the right, your First Amendment rights are in there, but if you're on a school issue and somebody else, I'm just asking you to use a little discretion on continuing with a long discussion on anything with board policy, because the public will say, oh, Derek said on social media, because you're more on social media than I am, Derek said this, and so now that's what the board's going to do. And so it can get out of hand really easy, so just use discretion, please.
Everybody should know social media should be used for its primary purposes, which is cat videos and funny dad memes. So that's the trick there, I think.
So,
Because the public's not going to read this and understand it.
so Derek, do you use social media?
I don't act, not very active, but I'm there.
Do you use social media?
No.
I don't use it. How about you, Mr. Carter?
A little bit, more than I used to.
So it's Carol and Mike.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, but,
They're not here, so I'm throwing them under the bus.
yeah, so it's like, just don't use it.
For anybody watching, no. I mean, I just want to throw the whole,
You understand?
yeah, I understand that I don't see a lot of it, and I'm thankful for it. I've just gone through so many board president training sessions with Pop that, and the horror stories that I've heard about two board members kind of go out, they start debating online, and all of a sudden now you have a board policy issue.
And I think that policy was put in to try to protect board members a little bit, because you
Yeah.
are human beings, and we don't pay you very much for this job, so we want to try to give you a little bit of protection on that. We'll double your salary next year, so. The 206.3 thing is really small. It's just saying that Lisa essentially will be covered by bond or insurance policy. So they added insurance policy in at the state level for that. 401.6 is, they added a line, which I think is a wise line to add. The state did a lot of work on grooming policies in the last year. And it just talks about, like, if a person is found to do that, that is allowed to be included now in an employment reference. You're allowed to talk about that, which I think was a very wise move to protect kids by the state. Abuse of students by district employees, again, includes some of that language that came out of the new grooming laws. Make sure you're including that in policies. Wise move by the state. Basic instruction program, there was just something, social studies, including instruction related to civics. I'm not sure I understand why that was added. But I would have a feeling it's from something that came out in the legislative session, but that's really the only change there. Post-secondary education counseling, this is, the state's really pushing on that, and this is why we have a CCTC, Jill Whistler, why we have Gear Up, why we have the thing that Molly Van Roekel does, which is called
Upward Bound.
check, Upward Bound, thank you. I mean, these are the kind of things, trying to show our kids what their options are out there. Student Health Services got a little bit of editing, and because my computer was not being very good at the time, it probably looks a little messy to you, because we had to print and scan because it wouldn't send, but it now includes allowing the district to help with dental screenings, which we were able to do before a law change, and that was an inadvertent loss, is my understanding, and they added it back for us. And purpose of non-instructional business services, this was a small change in the introductory policy for the 700 series. At one point, it said it was to serve child care purposes, but it's to serve financial services now, which is more encompassing. School district records, we added something based on complaints of discrimination, again, kind of around some of the grooming laws that the state had done. Because that's a big one with the state right now. School food items. There was a law that was passed last year, the no fake meat law in school cafeterias. So meat substitutes, I can't remember, Beyond whatever or something like that. So just putting in that you can't have anything misbranded as meat or egg products or cultivated protein food products in accordance with law. It's a busy section. It was a real busy section. 8013, this is based on a new law that now if a school district is selling a building and a private school wants to buy it, they have to allow that. So this is a new state policy. My understanding is it came from some of the bigger towns where maybe some school districts were hanging on to buildings they didn't want to sell to a competitor. And now you're required to sell to a competitor. Because, yeah.
Well, we don't have any buildings.
We don't have any to sell.
Some people worry about it. Other places, but we're not going to worry about
Yep.
it. So.
Vacated buildings, this is kind of along the same lines. It gets into that same thing. An update on weapons in school districts, and this is based on the law that passed about allowing staff to carry weapons with district approval. We actually have to adopt a policy that says that we do not authorize that. We don't have to. We could pass a policy that says we do authorize it, but in order to say no, we have to pass a policy for that. And my understanding from our board meetings on this is that our board had kind of leaned towards no. So I wanted to make sure that I got that in front of you. There is a line to add that school resource officers are allowed to, because knock on wood, it sounds like there's a good chance we're going to be able to get a school resource officer back soon. We have a fully staffed police department, which is awesome. That's where mine is today, training somebody actually. And that's all the policies there.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, motion, is there a motion to approve the first reading of board policies through listed in item I?
I'll move.
Second. We have motion second to approve board policies in item I. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Okay, approve the CNCFP. I don't know what that acronym is, but the food service agreement with CETA.
This is for providing food for Head Start. This is an annual item that we do, just re-upping it.
We approved that last week.
We approved just the program.
This is the food. Motion.
All the paperwork. Thank you.
Yeah.
Second.
We did the motion.
Motion approved.
Motion second to approve the food service agreement with CETA. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Items approved. K, approve the Blue Alley, this is a lot of procedural stuff tonight, if you haven't figured it out if you're watching at home. K, approve the Blue Alley agreement, block of time for basically tech services with cameras.
Yeah, and this is one we've been looking at for the past year, and we really think that we don't have enough extra need for another person. This is buying some time of their service to be able to help. you know, I think Cameron has learned in the last 3 years that he is a very techie superintendent, and I've brought a lot of new tech in that we're using, like when we talk about our front line and all that, and he does a really good job of keeping up, but he has some areas where he'd like to get ahead, particularly in the area of cybersecurity. And he's got some plans for what we can do. Cybersecurity is a big deal for schools right now. There's a lot of schools getting hit in some of those, what is that called, where they ransomware. Yeah, so he's really wanting to keep us ahead of the game on that, and this will help him to do that. Do you want to add anything to that, Cameron?
Just last year, I had a server fail and trying to relocate some things onto what I have left, and this is just going to help me save a lot of time with that, bouncing some ideas off these people too, and then just also having them there as like a sort of a consultant I can talk with.
Yeah.
So, and I've worked with these guys in the past. They helped us with our firewall, and we did them re-rate again this year for our core switch. So.
Is that the appropriate number of hours? It looks like it's a $21 an hour rate savings. Is 25 hours the right number?
Yeah, because I got it quoted two years ago, and then they honored the previous quote, the price.
Okay. And the hours are, I'm more concerned about the hours.
Oh, the amount. I mean, that's just their minimum, and I just kind of want to get my foot in the door with them and just have them, you know, see how much work they can actually do for me.
Okay.
Cameron's pretty picky about how things work in his tech world, which I think is a good thing. So he wants to test it out. And I'm not going to say that it wouldn't be a good idea some years to ask for more, like if we have a lot of server changeovers or something like that. But this gives us that taste.
Well, it was reading through that though, that if he gets through those 25, we can still not do it at that price.
Yeah.
So.
I'm sure it's 25-hour block, so. Any questions or a motion to second on it?
Second.
We have a motion to approve the Blue Alley, or, I don't know, is it Alley or Ally?
Ally.
Okay. The Blue Alley agreement, block of time, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Approve operational sharing agreement with Moravia. We
So
have,
this is paperwork cleanup from the ones that we've already approved to share these people, but we hadn't approved the actual document. The one change to that though is Dina Swenson. So we had a hard time finding a social worker to fill our social worker spot. So we at Lakeview, so we needed some additional counselor time to try to make up for that. We're actually going to be able to pay for a good portion of her salary using the grant that we've gotten for the social worker for now. And I think we still have it in our head to keep the search going because we know we need those resources. So last meeting, we had approval to hire her full-time, and this is to share back the 20. We were gonna only buy 50% of her time before, but we needed as much more as we could get, and this gives us that opportunity to get another 30% of the time and get some more service for our kids. The rest of those are ones that we kind of talked through, sharing me, sharing Sam, sharing Aaron. This is just to clean up and have the paperwork through. Well, I don't think the Sam one's in there because we already did that when we did it. Yeah.
I so move we approve the operational sharing agreement.
Second.
all right, we have a motion to second to approve the sharing agreements with Moravia. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. We did M. N, approve tentative disposal proceeds of the old weight room equipment. You have some documents on your table.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I have better than that. I have one of our teachers who works in that room on a regular basis, Mr. Keeler's here, kind of talk a little bit about the plan that the boosters are working on for the weight room and kind of what you've got with that document.
Yes, so I contacted Paralift about 2 years ago about the new weight room, since we were building a new weight room. First cost came in at about $120,000. We were able to knock that down to right now, I think $69,000 with, and that's with a discount from the Iowa Foundation, I think, through Powerlift, which is $23,000 is what they'll take off of the original bill, so it's $69,000. So with the Booster Club, I think the Booster Club has raised nearly, I want to say
40, what is it, 42 or 43, I think?
46.
46.
Yeah, so that's including the Pepsi contract money,
Right.
but including
Okay.
that together, we're at 46,000, so we're about 24 short. 24 short. Talking with Powerlift, they will do 50% up front, as long as we can come up with the other, within I think 10 business days or 10 days.
Yeah, and
After delivery.
we talked at the last booster meeting about, we're actually gonna have the boosters set up a table at Pep Chapel. Because we're gonna give a lot of tours after Pep Chapel to alums that are around and encourage some donation at that point to that project, which could bring in a good chunk of that. As you know, Pepple is kind of tight on our front right now because of the bills for building the high school and even still the Lakeview addition and still making payments on the wrestling room, and potentially a baseball field. So we don't have any amount of Pepple money kicked into this at this point. But what we're asking you for here is to allow, and you can see near the bottom of the Power Lift front page there, there's trade-in value on
2 racks, 2 7-foot racks, and 2 glute hand machines that we would trade in. And then talking with Trey, the new person that is in our district or area, we could take all the plates and sell those as sets, or we can sell them all together as one big thing. And usually you sell a plate with $1 a pound, so a 45-pound plate will bring in $45. So, or you can set, in talking to him over the phone, you can set an amount on anything you want to sell.
So what we're really asking the board for permission to do is to use our disposal process to allow us to work towards being able to trade in what we can with this company to reduce the cost pending the ability to purchase. So this wouldn't be where we say, yep, we're gonna set up for trade-in now, and then, oh shoot, we didn't make it there, we can't afford to build a weight room. It'd be one of the things that'd be the last thing that would be done as the, kind of the on top of that to make sure we get there. And we've got a process and the board policy for it, where we'll do a posting in the newspaper and everything, and so there may be a chance that somebody wants to give us more for some of these things than we can get on trade-in value, which I'm all right with that. That'd be just fine for us, but we'd like the board blessing to go for that.
I got a bunch of questions.
Okay.
So first of all, I want to clarify some things. So the 46,000, 20,000 is the Pepsi contract, right?
Yes.
So that's not what the boosters raised, that was money through
the
the
district,
contract.
yeah.
So the boosters have raised 26,000 on their own? Okay.
Yep.
So there's 46,000 there.
Yep.
Right. What about the $5,000 from the asset disposal from the high school?
Good point, so there's that on top of that.
I think they were counting that though.
In their
In her
26.
26. I think she was counting the 5 in that 26.
But that's not money the boosters raised.
It was a pretty informal conversation that we had. I think we were just talking like where we were as a team on it, to be honest.
So I just want to clarify it out. So there's 5, because, and the reason I ask this is there's people in the community who have said, hey, because they know about the weight room equipment.
Yeah.
They said, what about the donation I gave at the asset disposal of the high school, is that going towards it? So I
Yes.
just want to be clarified for that.
Thank you.
So there's like 5,000 there.
Yep.
Okay, 20,000 from Pepsi.
Pepsi.
Okay, so that's 25, and a little over 20 from the boosters.
Yep.
I don't want to discredit
Yeah.
the boosters, I just want to make sure that the people that gave to the asset disposal are getting.
Know that their money's put it, yeah,
Right,
that is,
right,
that's
right.
part of the.
So I just want transparency on that.
Yeah,
So there's a total of 46,000.
and I think that's a rounding, I mean, I think it's
Right.
give or take,
So there's $24,000 raised, $25,000 raised.
yeah.
So the boosters working towards that goal?
Yeah, they've got some, and correct me if I say anything wrong,
Yeah,
guys.
I mean they went on Go Pitch last week
Okay.
to pitch it. They like you said, they're gonna set the table up at homecoming, and they're working through some back channels trying to
Yeah.
find.
But I appreciate all that the boosters are doing, but I just want to make sure
They've
that.
got some letters out to
They got some letters, okay.
some businesses too right now. I think as of the meeting, when we talked, it sounded like there were maybe a couple that had responded, yeah, I think I'm gonna do something. I just don't know, is that kind of what you guys remember?
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of waiting to see what some of those folks come back with. Yeah, I mean, there's still some fundraising to be done on this, but we're getting close enough that we thought it was time to ask for the board's blessing to use disposal to kind of raise a little bit extra.
So then there's like 8,000 coming there. So then, what's in the weight room currently now that's in there that will stay?
Right now, what will stay would be 3 power lift, basically the newest ones that we have.
So for those of us that don't go to the weight room very often, what is that?
A power lift rack, it's about a 9-foot rack that holds all the weights on
Okay.
each side, comes with a bar and a bench.
Okay. Yeah, some of those benches are pretty tattered, I saw.
Yes.
They don't look good in a new building.
Yes.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the need to replace plates versus keeping the old plates to keep the cost down?
Replacing the plates would help because they're gonna be urethane coated. They're gonna have rubber coating over them.
Okay.
So that they don't crack, when you drop them, anything like that. It's more safety, for your floor, but it also keeps the weight room nice.
Okay.
Trying to up the standard a little bit. like
Yes,
we're working
you can
on
put
that.
your branding on them.
Yeah.
Just same thing with the dumbbells. I mean, you can sell, the dumbbells also, because I think in that is the new dumbbells.
Yeah, dumbbells are in there.
Yep.
So that's not part of what they're buying back?
No.
Okay.
Honestly, there's a lot of work being done on this. I think that's a good thing, and, you know, I really appreciate that for sticking late into the meeting to.
Yeah, you
talk
sat
about
through a lot of
this.
stuff. didn't you?
I think I might have accidentally lied to him, and said, I don't think you'll have to be there that long, so I only wanted, I really apologize.
I mean, Turkey.
What was your name again?
Brian Keeler.
Okay.
He
Black
is one
Rubber
of our
Training
PD
Bump.
teachers at CHS. He actually, so half of your day, would you say, is ultimate health?
Mm-hmm.
So half of his classes actually are in the weight room. So like my daughter, which I wouldn't have known it from looking at her, she likes to lift weights, and she's in that class with Mr. Keeler. So a kid can either take a low impact PE, which is where like a lot of walking, a lot of like more calisthenic stuff, not really intense. A lot of the kiddos who wanna lift weights, wanna get kind of ready for a sport, will take Mr. Keeler's Ultimate Health class.
And I appreciate the work on this, because as a board perspective, I know not everybody, I don't know what your memory is, you're probably the only one that would go back that far with me, is at one point, we were told by a previous administrator, I'm talking probably 4 years ago, that they looked at the weights and knew the cost, we were gonna keep what we had because they were adequate. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Oh, yeah, adequate.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why the board didn't put it into the bill, is because we were told, say 4 years ago, that we didn't need to do that. So we dropped that expense off part of that, so I think something has come to light and changed in the last few years, so.
Well, I think as we kind of see that new building together, but we're probably gonna have goals along the way now to try to update some. Aaron and I are gonna have to spend some time with our long-range maintenance plan too, because when you have a really nice location, what looked nice before doesn't look nearly as nice anymore. And we think, you know, now our oldest part of that building is the tech wing, and there's a few spots in there that are probably gonna take a little bit of work to kind of catch up, so.
But that's a good starting point. If
Yeah.
that's the worst, that's a
and
good
we're in
starting
a
point.
good spot, yeah.
So what exactly are we approving tonight?
I would ask for the board to consider approving to enable the administration to use the disposal process to work towards trading in some of the equipment from the weight room to this company towards our new equipment,
But that wouldn't actually happen
until we follow the process.
until the new equipment is
Right,
here.
yeah.
So we're kind of front loading, so once the new equipment is here, which is after the fundraising.
Once the equipment is ordered at the very least.
Right.
Yeah.
But it can't actually leave because he's got to have it for
Right,
clients.
and so when they would drop off, they're actually, I think I understood this correctly, they're actually gonna install that new equipment,
Yes, they
right?
would come in, they take down what we're trading in, and they bring back in, the new racks and
So be
everything.
like-
It's about a day, maybe day and a half process.
Okay.
For a little while there, it'd be like when you go to a store and there's a sold sticker on something.
Yeah, I kinda
Like
get
it's
that
like, this is, yeah, fair enough. So like this would be sold for when they come to do the install and pick it up, take the same truck back as they brought in.
Okay. So we're basically going to we're approving the disposal, we're not approving the purchase.
Right.
Because we don't have.
Because we're
That's
not
what I
ready to
wanna
make a
clarify.
purchase yet, yep.
I so move we approve the disposal process. Second.
All right, we have a motion second to approve as a tentative disposal process as discussed in anticipation of purchasing new weight room equipment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Thank
So
you.
moved. Thank you. Okay. Thanks for hanging in there.
See ya. Thank you.
Discussion item, baseball update.
Yeah, just a quick update here. You've heard too much of my voice probably for your own taste tonight, so we had a meeting with Rochelle, and actually Rochelle's gonna bring the results of that, probably our first meeting in October, to the school board to share for a visioning for what a baseball stadium, if we were to build that, would look like. We have the high school baseball coaching staff, Mr. Johnston, a couple of board members, myself and Lisa in, and really talk about what's important in building this, what do we really need, what would be useful, what would be some nice to haves. And then Rochelle is going to go back, she's gonna build like a tentative plan for us, based on a couple fields that she's done before. And then share, if we wanted to do the work in shifts, here's some ways that we could phase it out. And a general idea of cost. Things are still, my understanding, are still kind of up in the air of when you actually get a bid, if it's gonna look like it should, but a general idea. And so that'll come at that first meeting in October. And then I have had some continued conversations with Matt, with Indian Hills, about the process there. They're gonna start their demo work in July this year to kind of start working on some of their improvements. It really does sound like a good project what they're doing. And he's been very open about, whatever you guys do, let's talk about what we can do to, if you stay with us, let's talk about what you need in it. And we've talked a lot about that field that our younger guys play on. He said, even if you guys are making a different decision, work with us, let's see if we can give you a temporary place. So I think they've been very accommodating. Their cost has dropped down to $1 million total right now for what they're doing. They still have to they still have to finalize a couple details. That could still change a little bit there, but that's down quite a bit from where it was. That would probably lower our share some. We haven't gotten an exact number yet on that, but just some progress on that. He went with a different company to kind of design it, and it gave them ideas, one that's a little bit more cost effective and has done a lot of high-level fields.
Okay, that's good. Any questions on the baseball update?
Do we have a location yet?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have said that. My bad. So the city's offered to allow us to build on the end of all play, so there's the 2 softball fields there right now, and then there's 2 spots that if they build softball fields there, it's gonna be like a flower. So the spot that is nearest the concession stand is the one that we've looked at, because it has the most open space. It'll actually be slightly offset if we build, because this field is a bit bigger than the fields that are kind of laid out on that. And we would be there, and we've had some really good conversations with Jason about just kind of working together as a team on what can we do to raise float all boats or whatever there, with something we do, could be a benefit to them, something they do could be a benefit for us. There's been some debate about some other groups maybe playing some games out of some of those fields there, so that might help. Discussions about if we could work together on lighting, and so it may be the kind of thing that if we go that route, it allows us to help support something in the community a little bit too, which I think is also true when we're with Indian Hills, because that's an important part of our community. So we've got an opportunity to be a part of something great either place, I think. Something really positive either place. It's just what it looks like for us and what we need moving forward. And I think we heard some good things from our coaching staff at the visioning meeting. I just hope it doesn't come back, well, this would cost $5 million to build, because that's not in the cards, or the Cubs. It's been a while.
Just in the back of my mind, I remember what our maintenance fees were on the football field, and I have been told that a baseball field has less maintenance than a football field, but I don't know that.
Yeah.
But I mean, we not only are we going to build something, it sounds like, but we also have to factor in, what is our yearly maintenance going to be on that?
Yeah. And I want to tell you one thing that came up out of that visioning meeting that would make the upfront cost a lot more, but the maintenance cost lower in the long run, is almost everybody there wanted turf. They really felt like the maintenance on the back
All
end
coaches
was
have
more.
turf.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said for, we don't have to, because it's not a part of one of our campuses, if we were there, not needing to load a truck up with a mower and take it over there every couple of weeks and keep up with that, not needing to get new dirt put on it every few years. It's probably a smart idea, but it's gonna raise that cost a little bit to start with, so just maybe that little sticker shock could come our way with what we get told with that.
There's also,
It seems as though in my memory might not be right, on the football field, it seemed like the maintenance costs versus the replacement in 10 to 12 years was about a wash.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Kevin? Or?
pretty close, and I'll tell you, the big thing was fertilizer, mowing. Mr. Parkroy's had difficulties finding somebody to chalk the lines.
Yeah.
And I remember one time, I did see how some of the lines were chalked, and I asked him about that, and he said that guy would never do it again because they looked like they were.
I hope that wasn't like 10 years ago.
No, yeah, it was. It was the baby.
There was one time I chalked those lines.
No, it was more recent than that, but it was,
Yeah.
it was the watering.
It was always an issue with getting stuff done on time.
And then they practiced on it sometimes, and they put it, well, I don't know how much they practiced on it, but the games were on it. And I walked that field before the fall, before they tore it up, and it was rough, and I'm surprised we didn't have more injuries, just from getting mud in there and cleat marks, and that turf was never rolled or anything. And, I mean, we should have had injured ankles. So I don't think you tear it up like you do on a baseball field. I mean, a baseball field doesn't get torn up like that.
Another benefit to that for baseball particularly is you lose games if it's rainy and it doesn't get dry enough. So in the case of a turf field, that actually dries quicker. So we wouldn't have to lose some spring games necessarily.
So, yeah.
I've been told that get 2 fields, that would allow more tournaments,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Is that a part of the discussion?
Not from the cost side.
Not from ours, probably. And it would be tough to fit a second field there because we're already gonna take a little bit more than half of that space that's available if it could be built there. And there's, I don't know much about this, Jared would probably be able to say this better, but there's something about the direction that home plate faces the outfield that's very important, I guess, because of where the sun is, particularly because we do play a lot of evening games and try to
Right
make
field
sure.
sun. It's up on the right field.
Yeah, yep, we always want the sun field to be the right field, and there really isn't enough space for 2 out there. If we build there, we could still host tournaments, it just wouldn't be massive tournaments. There's people that host tournaments on single fields all the time.
Okay.
Maybe you could host some playoffs for smaller schools,
Yeah.
different lower classes.
That was one we did talk about at that meeting, because we do have that opportunity sometimes. I think the last 2 years, we've hosted some playoff games that weren't ours with Indian Hills. And hopefully we would have a nice, we don't want to go from having Indian Hills, beautiful field, to having, why would you even play baseball there? So we want to build a nice field, right? So hopefully we'll still have that opportunity with that.
I appreciate the ideas. I'm not a sports guy, I'm not a music guy, so I don't know what that leads.
Sorry.
I look forward to see what we come up with.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what she does.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay. All right, item P, approved personnel business procedures. Now, they're all in your packet there. There's a number of those in there. We have 2 teacher-related ones. One is actually a teacher as a coach. And then there's a teacher that wants to immediately resign right now in the middle, just the middle of the contract year. So I think there probably needs to be a little bit of discussion on that. So would it be agreeable to the board if we pulled out the coaching, because there's some precedents on coaching, what the board's done before, and some precedents on pulling out the teacher resignation. Maybe just to pull those out and act on everything on a consensus thing and just discussing those 2.
So doing consent on B through F.
Yeah. So let's do, and I'm okay with the resignations other than those 2. And well, let's just talk about this for a second, and then we'll see if we want to pull them off. from a coaching standpoint, we have not allowed a coach out in the year unless there's a suitable replacement. So there's a coach that has 3 sports. One's current season, they said they'll finish next season, but there's 2 more seasons up there. And in the past, we've had some coaches that wanted to quit in the middle of the season or before the season started, and we said, not unless there's a suitable coach, because that puts a burden on Jared to go out and find somebody. So that's just board practice in the past. So I just wanted to, do you have any problems with getting replacement coaches for those seasons?
I would say I would not for the coaching for those 2 positions. I actually have somebody in mind for one of them already that
I believe
has
that's one of them
applied.
on the table, wasn't it? The
What was it in there? I don't know.
basketball, girls basketball.
Yeah, did it make it in the board packet? I don't remember. But just anticipating that you would probably approve it. I interviewed somebody for a different position, and I thought they'd be a good fit, so I asked them if they were interested. And
So if you're comfortable with that, then I'm more comfortable. I'm just, the board practice, we haven't let somebody out mid-contract, so.
yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. So I'd be okay with leaving that one in. Now, the other one is a teacher that wants to resign immediately, and we have not done that unless it was due to a relocation. So how does the board want to handle that? Do we want to discuss that one separately, or do we want to leave this one? Because if we do a vote, it's leave it in, we do a vote for all of them. How do you want to handle it?
Well, I'd like to have the teacher separate, I'd like to have a little more background.
Okay. Everybody agree by that one? All right, so we'll just leave that one separate then? Okay. So do we want to act on the masses except for this, the teacher's contract?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be a discussion / motion.
I would make a motion that we accept everything except the teacher's resignation.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion second attached to approve all personnel business procedures except a teacher resignation at this time, which we'll consider separately. Motion is second on the table. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Okay. So now we have, before the board is, I'm trying to pull up on here, a teacher resignation that wants to, let me get it right here. There you go. Resign right now, kind of, I'll just call it in mid-contract here. So how do you want to handle this, Mr. Taylor?
So, while it's kind of unprecedented, I've talked to the teacher in question, and she said she wanted to share a couple things with the board, so I wanted to make sure to give her that space. And I can tell you my recommendation after that, and some ideas that I have to try to help the situation for the district. But are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So following my resignation letter, I thought it was only fair to give you a little bit more of insight of where I'm coming from. So I just want to start by saying this isn't an easy decision or a decision that hasn't come without a lot of prayer, tears, and sleepless nights. I know my resignation puts the Centerville School District in a bind, and I'm truly sorry for that. I love my students, my teams I work with, and the school, but at this time my family needs me more. So the one question that I'm sure that you want to ask, and is a valid question, is why did you sign your contract in May or June to resign now? And as a family, we agreed upon reassessing what school looked like for my oldest son after elementary school. But this summer, post signing my contract, my son had an appointment at Mayo. And without going into too many details, the appointment gave us a new diagnosis, where his developmental ages are, what his future may look like, and some suggestions of more therapies. At this time in July, I felt extremely overwhelmed, but convinced myself, like I have for the past several years, that we would be fine at school and just to continue on. But now, in the midst of this, that my son is older, some of his disabilities are starting to affect his self-confidence. Being a teacher, I get to see my own children at school, which I usually love. However, I'm seeing a different side of my oldest child. His head is down, he closes doors when he goes with teachers to read because he doesn't want people to hear him. He's starting to question why he has a helper, an associate, and ultimately I'm seeing his light getting dimmer. As parents, we've had spent his entire life building him up, giving him opportunities, and putting him in a successful situation, knowing that this day would eventually come. But as his parents, I can't see his light. My husband and I, we can't see his light go out, and we won't 15 years ago, when I went to college, I was going to be a pharmacist, and I kept hearing God tell me I was supposed to be a mom and a teacher. So that's what I did, and that's what I continue to do. I loved every student, and I pray I make a positive impact on their lives. 15 years ago, I didn't know I was going to have a son with a disability, but I do, and I wouldn't change it. I love him so much. And I now know that 15 years ago, I was told to be a teacher because my biggest job and my biggest responsibility is with the one I love the most. I'm 100% sure I have to go be a mom and a teacher to set my son up for future success. And I need to do that now. I don't, and I didn't take this decision lightly. It's a big responsibility, and it's my responsibility.
Thank you, I know that was helpful, thank you.
Here's where I have to be a bureaucrat, and I apologize for that. Let me tell you, I have a lot of love and respect for this teacher, and it's hard to say this, but unfortunately accepting this resignation at this time without a suitable replacement would set us up for denial of FAPE for a number of students with IEPs. Other students who maybe don't have the platform for advocacy, and who might not have people fighting quite as hard for them. I believe the right thing that we have to do for the sake of all students is to deny this resignation, but I would like the board's blessing to post the position and try to find a suitable replacement, and work very hard to find a suitable replacement to help this family, and come back to the board when and if we have a replacement in place, so that we aren't harming any kids and we're trying to help a family take care of what they need to take care of for their child. I would really like the board's blessing to be able to do that and bring it back, should we deny the resignation, which I believe is the correct decision right now.
So can you explain the denial of faith?
FAPE, free and appropriate public education is FAPE. So that's what it's called when a district can't meet the requirements within a student's IEPs. We're at or near capacity already for most of our teachers. Julie and I reviewed our rosters. Losing a teacher will put us over our delivery model, and it'll put us over our ability to serve all of the IEP needs that we have. I believe that it's very likely that at semester is probably the most likely time to find a person, and I have some good contacts at some of the colleges, and could really, if I have an opening posted, I can use that to try to recruit a person. You know, there's a Truman State has a job fair coming up in, I think it's November, that I'll try to get down to. While that's not a lot of, like, if trying to do it now would be hard, because they're really, if somebody has a teaching license and wants to be teaching right now, a district has hired them. But you get some semester grads all the time, and I'd like to really push to try to find one for us, to try to help out with this.
Do you want to explain maybe why we can't use a long-term sub as well?
Yeah, that's a good question, because
So Molly teaches special ed, is that right?
Correct. Okay.
So I think the board, it's important that because she has special ed students, those students would go to somebody else, and it would maximize the special education plan we have right now, and it would be, if more were added, which usually happens.
Typically, you'll get, particularly at the elementary level,
more IEPs come in place. Now we are exceeding our special education plan, and it puts the program at risk.
well, actually, Julie and I.
So why don't you explain that better than what I just did?
Yeah, that's
so.
fair. Without involuntarily transferring someone who currently teaches gen ed, we have a couple teachers at Lakeview that have special ed on their license. In order to not be in violation of that, we could require a transfer, but then that means we're gonna either cut a section of a class or cut Title I services. And involuntarily transfer a staff member, which in the day and age of easy mobility and paychecks that are pretty similar in every district, that's a risk long-term for maintaining that staff member who's involuntarily transferred. But the other option, sorry, what was the other part that you said?
Well, just the whole, the burden right now on the rest of the special ed teachers and their caseload. And I shouldn't call it caseload.
No, that's perfect. That's exactly right. It's caseload.
Okay.
Yeah. And we don't have enough room on caseloads at Lakeview in order to absorb the students that we would have to provide the services within the delivery model. There is a potential, if we could get an hour of somebody that's at another building, that maybe with our current staff, we could fill the IEPs we have now, but not anymore that we staff in. So we would need, before another student would be staffed in, additional staff. And having a person drive for 1 hour from another building, you have to hope that hour lines up with the schedule and works for what that kid needs. And it's a tough situation. You know, I hate to be the bureaucrat in the situation, because I think you all know, the term I use very often is mushy-gushy. I'm a mushy-gushy guy, and I just as soon rather help a person out. But unfortunately, I think in this case, we have a responsibility to the community and to the students that we have to postpone our ability to help the way that we would like to help.
Is there something Julia's going to explain further?
It's the sub, the reason why we can't use just any sub.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So in some positions, you can use a long-term sub. So they will allow you in some positions to use a person who is sub-authorized for a long, they say short-term, but a long-term for that. Unfortunately, specifically with special education, because of the paperwork with that, somebody else still has to take those students on their roster. So they will still count on the other people's roster. Even if we have a long-term sub come in and help with some of the instructional items, we would still be at capacity in the district. So that's a good point.
Questions, comments, discussion?
We're in a hard spot.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're in a hard spot.
And assuming you would allow me to post it and start looking, I've maybe told Sam to already put it out so that the veteran hold on Iowa Works would be done, so it would be public tomorrow. But I can pull it if I don't get that blessing to post and look beyond tonight. But I beg you to say yes to giving me the ability to do that.
If we want to take that first,
Yeah.
I think posting it's the right thing.
Okay.
Because I think if we can do something to help, you know, I know a contract's a contract, but there's also human heart,
Yeah.
right? And so I think posting it, if everybody agrees, that would be the right thing to do to try and find somebody as soon as possible.
Thanks for now.
I think so.
How does, IPERS work bringing back another teacher that has retired last year?
Well, that's something that I've kind of looked at actually, because there was somebody who had talked to me about some interest in that. So it's insurance that kind of gets in the way for us, but there's some things we can do for that. They changed the law for 2 years. They gave a 2-year window where somebody who's retired can come back immediately. We still need to do some work on how that works with.
Is there a 6-month insurance thing?
Yeah, 6-month insurance thing, but we can try to look and see. That would be, if I have a posting, that gives me the ability to kind of look for loopholes. I mean, I can look for loopholes anyway, I probably would have, to be honest with you.
We brainstormed, but.
Yeah, I think, half of my job is brainstorming what we can do to look at things in a little different way. And this would be something that I would definitely be open to a conversation on that. I plan to reach out to one person actually, if I've got the go-ahead to do that. That had already told me they had some interest in doing that somewhere.
So if you would get somebody, that would,
Then we'd bring,
then
I would really like to bring this.
when would it start?
Well, we'd have to bring this request back and get approval from the board, and then I would hire that person, and we'd work out a transition probably, to be honest with you.
So if you get a person that could transition and do that,
Yeah.
somebody that's out there that has a special ed,
That would be awesome, then
Yeah.
that lets everybody
And they
do what they.
and then they could go in there pretty much right away,
Yeah, depending on license, obviously.
on
licensure
license and
everything.
that, and then,
Yep.
and then if they just wanted to do it for a while, and get somebody else at the semester?
Well, I think we would need a pretty strong commitment that we can finish the year if we're gonna pull somebody in and release a
Yeah,
contract
I
at that
agree.
point.
Those are kids you don't want to just keep bouncing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But at least the person that I know had mentioned some interest, I think maybe had some ideas that she might be open for that kind of thing, to finish a year out.
Can we offer some sort of a financial incentive?
To somebody, that is something we could talk about, is that we may need to do that in the future. A lot of districts do that on special education
That's
positions.
what I mean.
Yeah,
I guess I would like to, part of this authorization to let you go look
Yeah.
is to authorize you some extra incentive.
like a bonus,
Yeah.
a signing bonus.
To help make that happen.
That might help me get some, like I said, our best chance is a semester grad. And I think sometimes if you can go to a semester grad and say, hey, I've got a signing bonus for you. When you're just starting out, a little extra money really goes a long way.
Yeah. Would it be feasible to try and find, let's say, someone who's retired and say, look, we're gonna hire you with the expectation that you may have to finish the year, but we may find someone in, January.
Yeah, I think that could be. I think we could talk about that. Like, we know you're gonna be done at the end of the semester, but, we think we're gonna need you all
We're
year.
gonna really try.
Well, what do you think if we find a semester grad, would you go, okay, just serve until?
You vacate.
Right. Yeah, and to be honest with you, when we talk about those numbers, in special education, I'd be comfortable if we ended up with an extra body for that semester. Because I would always rather see us closer to not the middle of that range, the 75% of that range that they're allowed. And that might allow us to work kind of at what we would feel is a little even better staffing level. So maybe if that person wanted to do the year anyway, and we still hire a semester grad, that'd be all right. Just because that's a group of students who you really want to have the resources for, and if we have a chance at extra people to help.
If we were to kind of work this plan, is there some other accommodation we could make for you at this time?
Yeah, I mean, I plan on calling an IEP meeting as a parent and getting some better things for my son.
I think for her
But that's-
privacy, we've talked a
we can
little bit
talk
about
to
some
you.
things.
Okay.
We're gonna have to help a little bit, I think.
I'm going to say something that I hope is taken in the right tone by everybody in the room and watching, but as a board, we're to discuss, not negotiate, right? So this is a really tough thing to manage, right? Because there's a need for all the other students. You have a need for your child. We as a board have a responsibility to make sure that all kids are educated. And it's a tough thing, but at the same time, I don't think we want to set a board practice of negotiating with somebody in the room. Because we have to worry about precedents in the future. Right? Sure. So that's all I'm saying. We have allowed 2 people, since in 5 years I've been here, in contract, both were to relocate. This is a different scenario, so we're really talking about precedents. So I just want to be careful on that.
Sure. And
Yeah.
nothing would be negotiated here.
Right, I know, but I just want to make sure there's no public appearance of the negotiation at a public meeting too. So, you guys got anything? Any other questions, Derek? Tom? Tim, you got something?
So we're gonna do this this will be a 2-part thing, because we want folks.
Well, and because it's not a discussion item, you don't really have to vote to give me the go ahead on that if I see your consensus that you're please do go ahead, that's fine. I think that, because then we're not breaking open meetings laws by having a discussion or a voted item you can't really vote on.
Right. So I think it's a consensus of approval to post.
Does that seem fair enough?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's pretty universal. Because that's a first step to try and help. So then the issue in front of the board is from as I understand, that the board is giving consent for Mr. Taylor to go out and post to try and find a replacement. However he does it, somebody out there who can bring on, grad, whatever it is, we're gonna leave him with the administrative responsibility to do that, right? So then the question becomes, do we accept the resignation or not? And I think that's really the question and the action that the board has to consider right now.
I'll make a motion that we do not accept the resignation at this time.
I'll second.
Do we need any discussion on this? Go ahead.
I want this lady to understand that we're gonna do everything we can to make this right.
Right.
Okay.
I think we just have to consider all students, as hard as it is to single one out, so, because there's other special ed students we gotta consider too, so. So I think that the heart is there, we just gotta take the steps, so. We have a motion, a second on the table to deny the resignation. All in favor, say no, by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, I know it's a hard thing to do, and I know it's a hard thing to hear, but I think we want to try and do the right thing for you. Oh, any nays?
Yeah.
The nay, I'm sorry, I missed that. Thank you. We have one nay. Yeah, sorry. I don't think any of us like doing it, so we'll see what we can do for you. Financial reports. Do we want to pay the bills?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Motion to approve. Financial report.
Does anybody else want to pay the bills?
I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a motion second to accept the financial reports and pay the bills. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Financial reports are approved. Superintendent report.
I'll be brief for you here. I was going to do my baseball update there, and then I remembered I had a baseball update earlier. Howard Cafeteria, I had a chance to, actually I spent more of my time at CHS and Lakeview. Admittedly, CHS, just marveling at how wonderful it is in some ways, and Lakeview just helping transition a new person in. No real bad things going on anywhere, but I did get to spend the lunch shifts at the Howard Cafeteria today with our students. Folks, if you get a chance to come through and see it, we made a really good decision as a team to move lunch into that whole thing. It's a big open area for those kids. They've got some space to do what junior high students do and be able to talk a little bit louder while they're eating, and it's a really positive atmosphere, and kudos to the way Mrs. Schofield has structured supervision in there, because I think she's got a really positive bunch supervising those students and letting them have that space to be happy during lunchtime. It's really great to see how that's going. You kind of jinx yourself when you say these things, but we have had awesome student behavior to start our year, really positive student behavior. So really enjoying that and catching up with our principals at the end of each day and just finding out how their day's gone. It's been really good. As we shared during the cell phone talk, we've gotten some very positive feedback. Our staff says it's so much easier to enforce because Jenny really made it very clear. If we all enforce this together, then it helps lift the load for all of us, and it's been well received. I had one kid, I was in high school last week, and I was standing with Jared Mahal talking through something, and I thought this kid was on a cell phone because his head was down and his hands were down here. And I went over, and he literally was twiddling his thumbs down there. It wasn't a cell phone. Isn't that something? But the kids are doing a great job. some teachers have books in their classroom, like shelves full of books. I know Mrs. Taylor does, and they've reported that students are checking out books because they're no longer texting on their phone and watching the TikToks during study hall. They're reading books and having conversations about books they've read. It's awesome, which puts the pressure on us. We're probably gonna have to pony up a little bit to update some of our library books, I have a feeling, because I think kids are doing more reading now, which is good. On a just personal note, I have had a really cool, the last few weeks here, really cool reminder of my why. I mean, a lot of what we read about says, remember why you do what you do, and how important for me kids are, and the interaction with kids and building community. I've had the opportunity to do some football coaching for the first time in my life with a 5-6 team. We have 30 young men who are learning the game of football, and it has really reawakened my joy of teaching, and it's been awesome. So those of you out in virtual land, if you're looking for something fun to do, we're always looking for more coaches and refs, so we can help you get there too. And of course, I would be remiss tonight if I didn't mention JETS, Jets, before we are done. So, sorry.
Is he out already?
I know.
Oh, don't even.
Yeah, no, he actually had a good drive.
Has he made 5 snaps?
We're gonna find out after the.
He made 5 last year, 4 plays, and then his.
The Achilles was the 5th.
Okay.
And
Sorry,
Aaron was
thank
dropped.
you. All right, it's getting late. So anything, questions from Mr. Taylor? Okay. Board member takeaways.
I mentioned this to high school admin staff before the meeting, but I wanted to make mention of here. I've had several reports about the high school, and one of them summed it up that it was the best start in 10 years. So I thought that was just highly commendable. Somebody's doing something right. And I'm looking for good things.
I'll go to the exciting, your thing, what is that?
Yeah.
Policies. Got to learn firsthand about the tardies this morning, so I was running a little late.
Oh, no.
I didn't know they would, I guess I didn't realize that you'd have to answer, people were getting the messages on their phones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's working. That's
working.
good news. That's good stuff.
We're in for something.
Right.
And then, but I did really like to hear how the phones, it's interesting how that's working, because my phone just drives me nuts at work, because I'm supposed to answer it all the time, and it's just distraction, in every app. So it's, I think that's neat if the kids aren't having to do that. Maybe there's not as much pushback as we expected, so. Anyway, I'm done.
All right, I'll skip me and I'll come back to me. Eric?
Yeah, I think the phone thing, I think, so far seems, whatever it is, has been well. I don't think we had to take it to the extreme that some other districts have, and, hopefully the state allows local decisions to stay local, but that's a topic for another discussion. Kind of likewise, heard some community members in the neighborhood of CHS that say it's just been so quiet and calm and relaxing without, hundreds of vehicles going around during the day, so trying to be good neighbors there. And then lastly, one of the last items we had, probably one of the harder decisions that I've been a part of in this board, and just want to reiterate that, let's do what we can to not only take care of our students, but, make sure.
Take care of part of our family.
That was not to say that any of us wanted to make tonight, at least me.
Yeah, I appreciate that Mike is going to be the delegate. I think it's not an easy job to do and spend time doing that, but it sounds like a lot of fun. And I agree about the situation here. We know there's teachers out there that are retired that would probably do this, but it's hard to get someone with special ed, I could teach, you could teach, but we don't have special ed, you know? It's just hard, it's such a specialized field, and they're hard to come by. So it really makes it tough, I mean, certainly, I understand your situation, obviously. Anyway, oh, yeah, also I'm gonna say something about Kevin, you know, it's hard to organize a meeting, and you do a darn good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's because I come in here ahead of time and I sit down with Mark and Lisa, we go over the agenda, so.
Well, you got two smart people to tell you what to do.
They're putting the agenda together.
He's a good listener.
He's a good listener.
I'm telling you, they're putting the agenda together, I come in, they go through it me, and that's what makes my job easier, but I do appreciate it very much, thank you. I'll tell you, my takeaway is a couple things. One, ISB is coming up in November. There's a guide that came in for the whole year, if you haven't seen it, so that should be in your mailbox. Has everybody signed up? Has everybody gotten the classes to them that they want?
No, not everyone.
Okay, all right.
I'll remind you once.
Oh, I read that. Have you given her your classes
I
yet?
have.
Yeah.
I gave them right away, so.
I just saw
Just
that.
want to make sure everybody signed up for it.
It's on my list
Okay.
to go after.
Okay.
Send me something, and I'll get it.
Okay. I wasn't gonna call you about it, it was just more asking to keep everybody on track. I do appreciate everybody goes through those things. You know, I'll tell you my takeaway on this one is, I'm 5 years on the board, that's the crappiest I ever felt about a vote. I mean, it just really was.
Absolutely horrible.
Yep. So it's, but I look at them, it says all students is how that starts. And we gotta consider the students that she is teaching and how that burden will go across to everybody else. But I think in the contribute positive to society, it is, you know, we still want them to feel valued in our society and our family by trying to get a suitable replacement. So I do appreciate the work that Mr. Taylor did to come up with that solution and the work that he's going to do to try and find a replacement. Because I do think it's the right thing to do. It's that all students will learn well. We got to provide for all students, and that's being on the board is not a lot of fun when you got to make a decision like that. So
We're not fighting for a win-win.
yeah, because that's what we've always said, we're to fight for kids, and we got one that we just have to. It's gonna be longer to fight, you know, in the hiring process to find someone to get that kid and that family what they need, and it's just unfortunate that we have to do it that way. So not a lot of fun making those decisions. So I appreciate the discussion on that one, and hopefully we'll have a hiring, so we can come back and make the resignation in the future. But that was hard. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All nays?
There's food here.